Quorum, 100%. Good. CPA, we met at the town meeting this week, but we did not have a quorum, but it wasn't necessary anyway because there were no decisions that needed to be made as of that. So we're going to meet, pretty quick, I think. We're going to have a CPA meeting to deal with some of the things, the follow-ups that happened regarding the town meeting. So we'll be meeting in the next couple weeks. And that's it. Anything from Trails?
The Trails Committee has their normal monthly meeting next week on Thursday at 7 o'clock right in this room. However, a couple of events to be mindful of. Sunday morning at 10 o'clock, the Frost Group with the Trails Committee is sponsoring a yoga walk at the lead mine facility on Arbutus Park Trail. What it will be is a skilled, trained yoga instructor is going to be taking people out for a short trail walk and then drop your mats and do a series of yoga and then walk. And it's the beginning of what we think might end up being a regular event that will be sponsored by Frost.
Sounds cool.
We have walk-ins?
Yes.
Hello, my name is.
Sit down, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, hello, my name is Matt Gagner, and I own some land on Ladd Road in Sturbridge, several parcels. I'm here tonight to speak about parcel number 11. I'd like to thank the board for hearing me in a walk-in. I have, this land is going to be some farmland going on, and I've registered with the state as a registered farm. And I've also have a forest management plan that's been accepted by the state. And I'm going to be doing some fields and pastures on other parcels that I'm not really here to discuss tonight, but I'm kind of giving you an update because I know some of you have been out to look at the land and whatnot. But the reason why I'm here tonight is on 11 Ladd Road, and it's a little hard to see on that picture, but it's been field and pasture. And I would like to basically mow my pasture or cut the grass or whatever terminology we'd like to use on it. Last time I was at this board, you guys advised me not to do that, and I have not done that. And I went by the other day, and it's time to, in my opinion, it's time to mow the lawn and maybe bale some hay or whatnot, which is a requirement through the assessors board. So I reached out and I spoke with Rebecca, and she said that, really I should come before you guys because I, just trying to be upfront with you guys and see what I can and can't do over there. So basically what I have is it's grass. That area that's on the it's not a great picture of the field.
Yeah, you have a point.
Use the pointer.
Okay, thank you. So here's the Ladd Road, and generally we're talking about this little corner of it right here. It's hard for me to see exactly where it is, but I think I have an entrance right there, which is field, and then there's trees right there. There's a little tiny field there, and this kind of does a little loop kind of like that. Right now it's currently grass. There's no woody vegetation. There's no trees coming up. There's no wetlands or anything in that area. It's been maintained by the previous owner. They were cutting hay there and rototilling and doing their thing. And I just I'm not trying to cut any trees down. At some point I may, and I will come before the board with a timber harvester's plan and talk about that. But for right now, all I'm trying to do is cut the grass. What I did do is I have, which I feel is a little bit better picture than that, but it might show the fields a little bit better than that, because that doesn't really show the field. It kind of, you could see a little tree line right here, but it's not really showing a bunch of grass, and this whole area right here is nothing more than a field. It does a little loop there, and it's up there. So if I can show you what my map.
Yeah, that'd be good, man.
So if I'll pass them down, if you don't mind passing them down. So what it is that's the same picture that I took off of Google Map. It's a comparison. The orange outline is the field, but I wanted to show you, the orange kind of throws the picture off, so I also threw one without the orange outline, so you could see basically looking at the tree line.
So, and I think that one might be, I mean, I went back and was kind of looking at the old aerial photos. That one might be like the 2016, which shows up much greener than the other ones. The other ones look like early successional, so it doesn't look like it's been maintained in the past, but I can put that one.
Yep.
So I think that's the 2016 one where you can see a little more
Yeah, that's
So
not,
the other,
definition there, but.
the other thing that I wanted to point out is I'm not trying to do something that hasn't been done in the past. And I do have a letter. I went and saw the Salus today, and they drafted up a letter. They said, and it just says, to whom it may concern, in regards to our previously owned land on Lad Road, parcel number 11, we had always maintained, tilled, and planted the fields for harvesting hay. We have sold the hay for construction purposes only. If you have any questions or concerns, please call me with a phone number. And this is from Brandon and Salu. You don't mind passing that down? Which I believe may be a key piece that you guys may be requesting. So that's what I'm trying to do at this point. I'm merely trying to cut some grass and bale some hay.
So when we spoke yesterday, I recommended, as we discussed at that December meeting, to submit the request for determination of applicability, as it wasn't clear. Under the Wetlands Protection Act, there are exemptions for agriculture, and there's definitions to follow if it's within use or within use in the past 5 years and being used for a commodity. So, I said if that's the case, then it appears that it could potentially be exempt and you could continue with agriculture uses, but we'd need some type of documentation to show that it's in agriculture and therefore could meet that exemption. But I recommended that the appropriate way to kind of move forward would be through the RDA process to get a determination from the board. But I said if you want to wait for that, come in and speak to the board to come in tonight and have a discussion for that. So
When did you say though you thought those aerial photographs?
this photo was 2016. That's the only year that it looks like a field from them. I can go back through some of the older ones if you want. Do you want me to put?
you had one up a second ago that.
Yep, so that's the 2000, let me move this down. So this is the 2016 photo where you can see that looks like it was mowed. We have, yeah, in 2017. That's 2011, 2012. 2008, 2009. 2005.
Okay.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, if it looks like it was mowed, harvested within the last 5 years, then that meets that ag requirement. You said
For a
that,
commodity.
For a
yeah.
commodity, it sounds like it has to have been used for a commodity within 5 years,
Well,
right?
yeah, if we've got anybody in town, they have a field without a mower. There are some that are closer to wetlands than others, but, South Road is a good example like that.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't let them go forward. What are you gonna use, a brush hog, and at this point, are you gonna use?
I'm actually going to try and bale it and bale the hay. So it'd be I'd like to bale it. I may, as we get close to the edge, a brush hog. But the intent is to, because I'm under the 61B.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I think I
No,
switched.
You switched it to
A.
A.
I'm in
yeah.
A now.
So,
Yeah.
so why would you brush hog on the edge? If the edge is the wetland or?
No, it's not the wetland.
Okay,
No.
Right.
It's been mowed in the past in there.
okay.
Well-
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, and I guess too, I'd be a little concerned as you get closer to this area, it is riverfront, and beyond the tree line, maybe those areas, if they hadn't been agriculture, if it's old successional habitat now, then that is a valuable wildlife resource area. I guess if you had a clear definition, you know, we have an outline here and you stick to the outline, I think then
It's,
you'd be comfortable with
it's
that.
crystal clear in the field, literally in the field, but there's a tree line, and then if I had to say, I'm just gonna throw a number at it, 50 feet before we start to get to the blue flags that Mr. Kowalski's put in. So we're not tight by any means as far as, you know, being very close. There's a whole tree line in there on that slope that you just pointed out. We're not anywhere near that. In fact, there's quite a buffer around the whole field that was previously mowed between that and the actual wetlands. We're not even close. And when I say that, it's about 50 feet.
So you're talking about, bailing it?
I'd like to bail it, yeah, the center of it.
Yeah.
And sell it.
And sell it for what?
Like erosion control, silt fence and hay bales.
Say, 'cause, you know, there's gonna be sticks then.
There's
All kinds.
there's no sticks.
No?
It's grass.
It's grass?
I would have no problem with it if you stayed the 200-foot buffer zone away from the water resource. What you have to remember is that this is elevated ground, and on the back side of it, it slopes right down to the body of water. So if our normal buffer zones are 100 foot for the state and 200 foot for the town, if you were to stay 200 feet away from the water source, then I would say it's, unless it looks early successional, you know, if it hasn't been mowed for several years in that area, but the whole top section looks pretty well grassed in. And if that's where you're planning on mowing,
So, David,
as I said, if you were to draw a line where the 200-foot buffer zone is,
you're talking
That's
about,
kind of like this blue line right here.
yeah, there we go. Well, where did Glenn put his marks? At the 100-foot?
No, Glenn has them identified at the wetlands.
like the BBW, Boarding Vegetative Wetland.
Okay, you went right to the BBW with the flagging.
And the,
I originally flagged it for Mr. Salou is when he was looking
Okay.
at it, Matt just bought it recently.
I'm sorry, can you grab the mic and introduce yourself? I'm
I
sorry.
originally, Glenn Kowalski, EBT Environmental, if it's on, I originally flagged the wetlands recently for Mr. Salou, and he had just sold it, as you understand.
Okay,
So the mean annual high water is flagged, and the BBW is flagged
Okay.
around that field, entire field, from road all the way back to just about road as it loops around.
if I may,
Right.
I'd like to point out, Mr. Barnacle, I think the original field is closer than the 200 feet. The part of it is not the whole thing, but down. I would say it's closer to 50 feet. Maybe it's 100 feet, but it's not. The mowing doesn't go right to the wetland resource area by any means. There's quite a buffer in there, and I have no problem leaving that buffer. I have no intention of cutting trees up to the wetlands over there or anything. I'm just trying to cut the grass as it stands now.
we're actually trying to protect the area that your kids were ice skating on last winter.
Yeah.
Could I just get so relative to this 200 feet, what's that going to do to your field if your mowing ability, or where you want to harvest, if you stay 200 feet away?
If we stay 200 feet away, that's going to be terrible for me. I'm not requesting 200 feet. I'd like to request mowing as it was mowed. The 200 feet is, in that particular area it's like going to be in the middle of the field.
Okay. Well,
I'm requesting 50 feet or to that existing grass line.
I don't know if anybody came before us. If I'm thinking around this town, anybody that has fields mows to the existing grass line. And normally, there's a wetland at the low end. If you go down Hall Road, they're not 50 feet from the wetland. If you go down South Road, if you go to George Berry's property, he's mowing. If you go to Lynn Sardi's property, she's mowing right up against the river.
right up against the what?
The river.
Okay. Yeah,
So I'm saying if he's not doing construction to do this, if he's just mowing, I think he should be able to go ahead and mow the field.
that's why I asked the question. I would agree that, if you stayed at the existing grass I don't see the use of the 200, sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
Especially since he says it put him in the middle of his field. He's mowing, not digging up the earth. Anyway, my thoughts.
Well, that's with, anybody else? Do we have a consensus on that, or do you disagree? Where do we go? Because this is just, he's just a walk-in, we don't have any, we gotta
I'd say-
move it along.
If you're asking me, I'd say that he should do the RDA and that maybe some conditions considering trees.
But what he would like to be able to do is to mow now,
Yeah.
because the conditions are right to mow now.
Okay.
And perhaps do the RDA subsequent to it. But at least be able to do the mowing so that it's concurrent, so you can get, you want to get the first cut done.
Yeah.
I'm okay
Exactly.
with that. Becky was talking about an RDA, so. I didn't realize what time it is.
Yeah, we do an RDA
All right.
afterwards.
So all in favor of letting him mow and getting an RDA afterwards? Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So we'll use the plan you submitted, the sketch, as the outline of the existing field for you.
So do I call you during the week or something, or?
Sure.
Okay. All right, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Want to pass that down?
Right. Read your
Yep.
dissertation there.
All right. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or within the 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland Bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ad. Prior to opening the first hearing for each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any of the visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
All right, 6:15, request for determination of applicability, 130 and 140 Fiscal Road, represented by EVT Environmental Consultants, Inc., for applicant Gulas G. Allsworth LLC.
Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Conservation Commission. Glenn Krawski from EBT Environmental and Mr. George Goulas. We filed an RDA, just back up a little bit, I will. We had filed an ANRAD and received an ORAD just towards the end of the tenure of Glenn Colburn. Had an agreement on the resource area line. Becky might have
Yep.
that old plan. And we did not do, I talked to the surveyor today, he did not do the interior of, when we picked up the flags. Mr. Goulas was looking at just doing the frontage at that time on Fiscal Road, and potentially in the future, there is a small piece of frontage on McGilpin. But at this time, there was two potential vernal pools also when we filed the ANRAD. It was the wrong time of the year to look for, and this is considering your bylaw, wrong time of the year to look for vernal pool inhabitants. So as a couple of years have gone by, but the ORAD is still valid, we got out there this spring and looked for egg masses. Throughout the frontage area, specifically we were looking at that front pond.
Would you use the
You want to use the
pointer?
pointer and show us where you're talking?
Specifically, we looked at the front pond, which is right here. And then the landing area where the logging operation took place would be here. This is the frontage Mr. Goulas is looking at. There's a potential vernal pool by Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program on that front pond. And there's another potential vernal pool inside the site that we also looked at. It's back in here. This one is a deeper pool, about 3 feet deep. Went in there with waders, across the site, First off, we looked at this site. We've been looking at it both last year and this year. We did catch common shiners out of there. We submitted an photo exhibit showing those shiners. We also have a heavy crawfish population within that pond, and presently the beavers, this pond comes around like this. The beavers have dammed the outflow over here a couple of feet, and that's one of the exhibits also. So this area is backing up.
The pond isn't marked on the,
It wasn't marked on the original. We're using the surveying plan. The pond this comes around one side, and this is where it comes around to this side. This is the outflow right here. So all the guys picked up was the farmer had originally dug a channel outflow at this location, and this is where the beaver dam is. And if need be, we could get the surveyors to pick up the other side of this pond. We have never seen it dry, and the adult crawfish population, not that crawfish mean everything, but the common shiner population. We went in there in the winter, chopped holes through the ice. The water's about 7 feet deep in here, and we did find probably the farmer, whoever put shiners up in there, but there's no inflow source to this pond. It's groundwater, but there is an outflow, and eventually ends up down on McGilpin. It crosses through. There's no access for fish coming up into the site if we walk through this. I flagged the entire site. So it appears possibly farmers, or however the shiners got in there over the years, it's a shiner population. In crawfish, again, a heavy indicator that the thing doesn't dry up. And I know that years ago, and I don't, just to quote or to look at Mr. Barnacle, don't look at me, he says. I think you mentioned that you mentioned when we were doing the RDA that you hadn't seen it dry, but that's just my recollection. I'm not saying it's not a quote. But we haven't seen it dry from 17, when it was a drought year, 18, this is 19. So the shiners on the vernal pool certification requirement, which are newer, they used to require that you found 3 egg masses in a pool. Now it's 5 egg masses. So in this lower area, we did find 3 egg masses at the very stone wall on the property boundary, and then in about 75 feet from that, same topography, we found another 3 egg masses. So we have enough to certify that pool, and we're going to move forward with that. Ms. Gendreau did talk to Jacob Cubble, and I did also, vernal pool ecologist at Rare Species Program. And although the common shiner is not a heavy prey animal on fish, on salamanders, the regulations say if there's an adult fish population, then it's not a vernal pool. So it also indicates it doesn't dry out, along with the shiners indicate, the crawfish indicates that also. So we're proposing, as Rebecca did ask me, well, what does Mr. Goulas propose to do? And he can, I'll briefly speak, and if he chooses to, obviously, go through the chairman and ask also. But it's this area here for frontage at this point for lots, a couple of lots in there. He does own this lot also, but there's the wetland right there, and he's going to be restricted. But this whole thing in together may be enough if the ledge at the surface that we spot in here doesn't preclude him from building. He would also look over there. We are aware of your setbacks, obviously the bylaw setbacks, but we're in here because of that. Anything that smells like a vernal pool, I'm paraphrasing your bylaw, anything that smells like a vernal pool is a vernal pool until you prove it isn't. That's why we're here. And that's similar to other bylaws in other towns.
All right. Becky, you want to?
Going back to developing that, any perk tests done on site yet? Do you have any idea if it has perked, or if it's perked, where it's perked?
We have no current perk tests.
Okay. I guess I'm just curious too, because that'll kind of dictate what you can do there, thinking about doing the vernal pool study. So as Glenn did mention, I did reach out to the vernal pool biologist at Natural Heritage to look at Glenn's results and give us a little feedback on that, because we didn't have a protocol set in place prior to starting the survey. So he did give us some feedback. He did have some concerns, which Glenn and I talked about a little bit earlier, about the presence of the shiners. And he gave some recommendations on what we should look at for a study of that pond to rule out the fish population. So, I do have the information. I shared it with the commissioners to review. He did have some concerns that, the fish survey to his liking might not be comprehensive. And he wasn't sure if it was conclusive to show that there would be an established population there. So, I can share this information with you afterwards too. So with that being said, there's a few more things we could look at as part of the survey to kind of rule out its possibility to support a breeding fish population. And that's kind of why I asked Glenn, what is the plan for development? Because if you can stay far enough away, the commission can decide that maybe you don't have to, rule out or rule in that it's a vernal pool at this time and be able to move forward with some development without going through that process, so.
Could I have talked to Mr. Cupble myself, and the point about the fish population, if they were transient fish, if there was a way for fish to get up there, or on some rivers, if there's an oxbow and the oxbow allows for fish during a flood event to get into a pool, and then the pool, and I have one of these pools on my own property, that during heavy floods, water can get into a vernal pool. It's on my entranceway to my driveway. I could bring it up, but the point I've had during heavy enough storm events, 5-inch, the French River floods over, comes into the land, drops off some fish in there, and I now have some fish. The pool dries up, the fish are gone, and for another 5 or 7 years, when there's no flood, there's no fish in there. So that's a transient fish population. There's no other way for fish to get into this pool. They don't swim up there. There's not a flooding event that'll put them in there, and then the thing dries up. The shiner population was shown on the photos is there, and the only way that they're in there, unless a bird just dropped a bunch of fish in there, is that they're breeding in that pool.
Okay. Anything else, Pat? Steve?
So Becky, what you're saying is that if he stays a certain distance away, regardless of, assuming that it is that what you're saying, and stays that distance away?
Right, then you could potentially avoid doing additional survey at this time.
Right, and we were out there, and it did appear that there was space on the property to do just that, as I recollect from our walk on that property.
Right, and it was a pretty big landing area that had been cleared as part of the forestry project there too, so most of it was disturbed.
Right. Well, given that, I wouldn't see any kind of a problem, and he hasn't perked it yet or anything, so we really don't know what's going to happen in the future with this, but according to our, what we saw when we walked, that makes sense to me.
Paul?
No, I agree with what Steve just said. I have no problems with him going ahead and continuing work on it.
Dave?
Same here.
Yep, I agree.
Part of the deal is that Glenn said at the very beginning, it was the wrong season to actually be looking for vernal pool organisms.
Originally, when we did the ANRAD,
Yeah.
right, so that's why we did the RDA now. We had
But you also did it late in looking for vernal pool creatures.
the spotted salad. I have the egg masses in my hand in the photos. They're not even developed at this point. At the point that I looked and found the spotted salamanders and wood frog egg masses were still out without disintegrating. So it wasn't that late. They wasn't right when they hatched out. But take a look. That's why I picked them up without
saw the
taking them out of the
pictures.
water, and you can see in them they were not developed. Those eggs. It was a cold spring. The eggs were still all intact. Well, wood frog do hatch out earlier. In fact, right now in the middle of this month, wood frog polywogs would be hatching out or actually getting out of the pools. But spotted salamander, well, they'll be hatching out by the end of June. I know because I study them on my property. I have 5 vernal pools on my property that I'm studying with species program. I'm the first in the state that was allowed under the state's Fish and Wildlife, their name, to study and create a refuge vernal pool. So I need to say this because I don't want to make a point that I'm not somebody that just goes out and says I got a pool. I've probably certified up to 40 vernal pools, Corps of Engineers. I've done 20 at Hodges Village. This refuge vernal pool, if you give me a chance, Mr. Chairman, that I'll briefly state it, that 5-year study of groundwater table across the river from my house. I own 18.5 acres on the French River. And I had a ephemeral vernal pool that dried up. I work with Dr. French from 2010 to 15, and by 5 years of study a groundwater table below the pool. As the pool dried up, I studied the water table for 3 feet under the pool by digging a test hole in the pool, a measurement, and then once I found out where the summer low water table is by the beginning of September, then through notice of intent process, Fish and Wildlife under their name, there is a process. I'm pretty well wrapping it up. The process is that if a project is designed by Fish and Wildlife, and we can read this in the wetland regulation, if it's designed by Fish and Wildlife, it's deemed, this is the language, deemed to protect, to enhance wildlife habitat. And you can overcome the presumption. Or if an individual is approved by Fish and Wildlife to design a project that enhances wildlife habitat, it's deemed to improve. I fell under that project. I was approved under Fish and Wildlife. I dug the pool, and now a 20-foot diameter, 3-foot deep hole that I dug with a mini excavator in a pool that was drying up prematurely, all for climate change, because our springs are, in general, not this spring, but the springs previous to this for the last 6 years, we've been having 1 to 2 months of a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inches of rain, whether it be March, April, or May. And in those months, if the eggs are laid and it's too dry, the bottom of the pool can drop out. The eggs are no good any longer because they're dry. Or if the eggs hatch out and the pool dries up, then the eggs don't function. So Fish and Wildlife approved me under their name to create this refuge vernal pool, again, first in the state, to show that if we start getting drier springs for 1 or 2 months and we're losing rare habitat pools, species, you can then, this is an example, and I have to share this information, I have been for 3 years, that the pool, this may be a mechanism to keep marble salamander or blue spotted salamander, but I'm working with spotted salamander, which is the yellow, to actually increase the depth, following the water table down, but don't make it too deep, and this was French's requirement, so that I'll have bullfrog or green frog polywogs overwintering. So I had to make it so that it would dry up by September or October. So that's why for 5 years I studied that water table, presented all the data, and eventually approved under their name. So as far as vernal pools, I've been working on them for an extensive period, probably, well, since I've been a consultant, '86, but for
Okay.
this refuge thing for 5 years.
Okay, so with the biologist's information, he gave 3 key things that he said would be valuable for a good study of the pond. So those were, 1, he said, a comprehensive survey for evidence of breeding by obligate vernal pools, amphibian species. So I don't know, and I don't know if your information included, did you look in that pond for any egg masses or
We
larvae?
did. Because of the beaver damming, the water is now chocolate. I mean, it actually degraded water, because if you understand, whether any beaver pond will now flood additional lands that normally aren't underwater. So those magnesium, manganese, iron, and sulfur ions come out of the organic material that's now underwater. And I can bring in that study also from UMass, because I'm with the Acid Rain Monitoring Program since 1983, and prove that increase in iron. So lastly, the water got chocolate. The water is dark and tea stained where it wasn't before. It's 2 feet deeper, or 1.5 to 2 feet deeper than it was normally.
Okay.
So it is harder to see any, but I did not find any.
Okay, so I
spotted
think
salamander.
if you gave us the information when you were out there, how
Yes.
many times you looked, et cetera,
Yes.
I think you
Okay.
can still look for larvae now too, so we might still have some opportunity this season if you want to pursue looking at that.
Yes.
But I think it's important that we just kind of have a protocol so we can agree
Larvae.
on that. So, and I can share this with you. He also said the survey, comprehensive survey for evidence of a reproducing fish population. And, there's a little more details, but I can give you that too. And then a thorough study of the pond hydrology, documenting minimum and maximum depths and surface areas throughout the year. So I can give you that information. So if you want to continue to move forward and do some survey work, I think that you can do that. And by providing that information, it might meet their criteria. And if that's the case and it's not a vernal pool, then we can rule that out. But I think we need to follow the biologist's recommendations for that survey if you want to. And then also, as I was saying, if you want to start doing some perk tests and find out where you potentially have those abilities to develop, and if you can't develop really close to this anyways, then maybe, you don't have to continue with some survey work at this time. So I think that kind of gives a couple options for moving forward. But, right, it is end of spring, so if you want to continue doing some survey work and you can meet his criteria, I think that's something that the commission can review.
Well, right now, we just have a one-line,
Yes, sir.
right?
Right.
So we really don't know where those vernal pools are.
And we don't know where that pond is. I mean, we know where the edge of, one side of it is.
The wetland
Except for
edge.
area, yeah.
Yeah, the wetland edge, right?
Right,
So-
yes, sir.
So we need to survey the whole.
We did flag the other side, but again, it's the wetland edge and not the pond edge, and the pond edge is now expanded because of the beaver. So we'll, and actually he's flooding upland areas.
Yeah.
On the backside over in here. We can pick up these wetland flags to give an idea, and then we could pick the specific elevation that it's flooded to, and then shoot that, then that elevation can be identified on the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would need that, right?
If you need it,
Yeah, I
then
mean-
you're gonna, and you're asking for it, and there's a vote, or
Well,
if you're asking for it.
I don't know.
Let me say one thing, that many vernal pools are not fully defined. In fact, vernal pool certification, it says, yeah, here's the pool, latitude, longitude. They don't, it's not a surveyed plan around them, but we're not, that might not be Sturbridge. So if you're asking for the definition of the pool specifically in the specific diameter, well then, here we are.
How are we gonna get that if it's flooded as a pond, though?
I would pick up the flags that I still have out there. There's still remnants of my flags, and would have to reflag it. But we'll also, what we're looking at in the fall, he was going to trap the beavers out in season. We missed the trapping season from November to April, which is out of season, well, in season trapping. And right now, it is causing a problem to identify the limits of the pond. This is the first time we've had, that I recognize beavers up there. I had no beaver chew. I'd call it beaver chew, in other words, where beavers chew. There was none when we flagged it. This is the first time they've got up there, that, period.
But we have a one-sided wetland right now.
We can pick up the other side. We'll pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, don't you think we need to? I mean, if we're gonna
I
be
just-
constructing in there.
Just said a minute ago that it's not, to certify a vernal pool, it's not required that you identify the full limits of the pool. But I'm in Sturbridge, so.
Are you only here on the vernal pool? You're not
I'm
looking for
only
any
here-
action whatsoever?
I'm only here on that vernal pool. I was here to say, I'm gonna certify the back pool because it said potential vernal pool, and I said, well, we can give a certified vernal pool in the back where it was defined as a potential vernal pool, fine, and we did look around the rest of the site in the front. We did find enough evidence, 6 egg masses, we can certify the one to the back left on this plan.
Right, if you combine those together, right? That was
Right.
the discussion.
Well, they're not that far apart, and it's
Yeah.
all the same valley, there's a ridge system there. And then we're here to present documentation
Well,
that
let's
there's
move
an
on
adult fish population in the pool, an adult fish population under the reg says that you can't have a vernal pool if you have an adult fish population, period. And Jacob even stated that,
You're going back to that, but that doesn't answer my question.
yes, sir,
The pond
pond,
is round
round, oblong.
and oblong. Show me where it's oblong on that.
If that's what you want, then we're gonna do that. Here's the oblong right here.
Yeah, I
It
mean.
goes from here to
so-
here, and it's oblong.
so
It's
you
kind
got-
of
You've got the
narrower.
wetland.
Yeah,
edge.
but I don't think they picked it up before because it was all inclusive of the BVW
Right, okay.
for the ORAD, when you did the
For the ORAD,
so-
right.
Yeah.
Yep. My recommendation on the ORAD was originally to pick up all my flags. I spent a ton of time out there flagging this whole thing. Mr. Goulis, and I'm not picking on him, he's my client, but this is just the way it was. He only wanted to pick up the frontage.
Yeah.
So we picked up the frontage, and there we are. And then only because we were going to develop just this at the time, well, then it made sense. And the surveyor said, geez, it's all ridge and wetland and down in here, there's no need to go down in there. And so this is what we did. It was the first time I worked with that engineer. Maybe if I grabbed him by the neck and held him a little bit tighter, he would have changed his mind.
So I think what they're asking is he would like to rule this out as a vernal pool based off the information he's provided.
Yes,
That's
that's what I'm
we're-
here
A couple
for.
more things before he does that.
I would feel more comfortable based off what the vernal pool biologist
Okay.
provided for his feedback for that,
Yeah.
to document that breeding fish population. I think that's the key words that he used, and I think that's important to
So we
rule
have a
that out. And I
continuation
think-
on it? Can you do that?
Don't we have that, or don't we have the,
We do. I can't, as I said, I mean, I know Jacob is a vernal pool guy, but if you've got the shiners in there, that is a breeding population. They don't live 100 years. I mean, unless they're sterile.
They don't.
Shiners are in there We presented, we used shiner nets through
Yeah.
the winter. We dropped the shiner nets in the pool. We show pictures where we actually cut through the ice. I had a net, cages on the bottom, and I had
Another
cages up
picture?
near the top.
Yeah, there's one picture with
One.
4, right? Was it
There's
just
about
those?
4 or 5 shiners in the
Okay.
cage. We weren't there an extended period of time, but we picked up the shiners, and to us, that said, okay, adult fish populations, because they can't get in there any other way.
Right.
And to us, that said, it complied with this, that if you have an adult fish population, you don't have a vernal pool. And he concurred with that when I talked to him on the phone, which was after you talked to him.
So are we refuting that this is a vernal pool or not?
He's saying it is not a vernal pool.
Because it has an adult fish population. Right.
Right. So,
Just based off the biologist's feedback,
Yeah.
there should be a little bit more comprehensive of a survey done, or that information may have already been done, provided to us before he would rule one out. So that's just my recommendation based off of the vernal pool biologist's feedback.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
let me hear from the committee.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We might be spinning our wheels. It might not make any difference whether it's a vernal pool or not, depending on where Mr. Goulis would develop that property. It seems to me that while he's doing perk testing, you, Becky, and anybody should go out and with Glenn and just see where the line would be. And say, okay, if it's a vernal pool, you can't be any closer than this. If it's not a vernal pool, then you can be this close. And let them make some decisions as to whether or not more studies are needed.
But that puts the applicant at a disadvantage if he's interested in designing a plan for the property that he has.
Well, if you go out and you find that you're losing too much land on the gamble that it is a vernal pool, I don't see how it can be a vernal pool with adult breeding population in there, but you know, I don't think we have all the information here. If he didn't know about or maybe didn't like the fish survey yet, I don't know. It just seems like there's a way to like move forward on this thing, and if you need, if more survey needs to be done, and he needs to determine whether or not it is, because it's going to have a really strong bearing on where he can develop that land, then you got some decision trees along the way.
Yep. Steve?
I agree with what Steve said. I think I think it makes sense to,
Request more information?
yeah, to request more information.
And we have to, the thing about drawing the outside line, we have to make sense of this. Remember that a vernal pool is ephemeral. So it can have the same dimensions maybe 2 years in a row, but most often not have the same dimensions 2 years in a row. It changes very slightly depending upon the contour and depending upon the serious amount of
Right.
rain that you get.
But I asked the question on the outside line of a non-vernal pool.
And I don't think it's feasible
So-
to develop in the rear portion, am I
Convince him,
correct?
not me.
I know, I'm just
so I
saying,
don't think it's
yeah.
I don't know that it's necessary to have that back line picked up, because you
Okay,
can't develop back there.
Can't develop. You're
Yeah,
right.
it's
There's
really.
no development over here.
And there's no reason to spend money
Right.
on a process that is going to be expensive if in fact it's not going to truly have value to either the commission in making a decision or the owner in making his decision relative to the property.
Thank you. I agree.
I can provide you with the information from
I-
Jake, and you may already have this information, but it may just not have been included with your submittal for us. Showing the dates that you've gone out there or whatnot. Maybe we can do a site visit together. Maybe we can have the vernal pool biologist come out and kind of, look at that and be able to make a quick determination that way.
Even Jacob Cubble said, because shiners, the regulation was written in such a way that it didn't matter if it was a bass in there, a trout, a pout, or whatever. It didn't matter if it was a fish that doesn't eat vernal pool inhabitants. You can have spotted salamander egg masses in that pool, and it still won't meet the criteria of a vernal pool because it has an adult fish population. The key word here is an adult fish population. The law, and he said it on the phone, because we just decertified a vernal pool. Please let me say this. We just decertified a vernal pool, Campbell Pond in Webster. And it had been certified, it was erroneously certified. Jacob Cubble came out. We had shown from '04, '06, this is how far back it went, and only 3 years ago, when spotted salamanders, spotted turtles were kicked out in '06. Short time after that, we went back in, and we're still working with legislature now. We just decertified the pool, which is only 2 to 3 out of the whole state that were ever decertified by proving an adult fish population. But the point he said in his letter with that, you have bluegill, they're a predator to vernal pool inhabitants. Common shiner is not a predator, so you could still have vernal pool eggs in there, or obligate eggs, and you're still not gonna have a vernal pool because you would have adult fish population. The law was written pretty clearly. If you have adult fish population, it's not a vernal pool. So what I presented was the fish population, and sure, we could work to go and see if there's some babies, now that it's spring and you'd have common shiner. This shiner is a small shiner. It's not the golden shiner, it's not the red shiner, which grow to 6 or 9 inches. They're bigger. The common is a smaller shiner, 3, 4 inches, 5, I think, max. And their offspring are pinheads at this time of the year. They're very small. But it is the fish, and that's all that mattered to the law.
Okay.
I also want to add that this has been going on for about 3 years with Mr. Krawowski and with the engineer. This is not something we're rushing through. So we've been through this. We surveyed the whole thing. We flagged it. I don't plan on developing the middle part. I'm just going to get some estate lots, give big estate lots with this land, and the middle part where the vernal pools are.
There's none in the middle. Well, whatever, go on.
Where those vernal pools are, that doesn't really make a difference. It's the frontage, the front part that matters.
I agree. I don't think we need to look.
Nothing would ever happen on this whole region. This is ridge. You can barely see it, but it's ridge, valley, ridge, valley. You've seen that. This town is loaded with that ridge, valley.
Yeah.
Remember the Salami one, Ridge Valley? It's just the glacier. It's the way our ledge system works in this town and the way the glacier. So over here, there is a chunk of upland, but you'd have to cross through a wetland, possibly 2 wetlands to get to it. I'm not saying that limited access provision wouldn't allow us to get there, but that had not been picked up. Right now, all it's showing, and this is the scale that you're looking at, the 40 scale is on the floor. This is a large scale. It's a 62-acre piece.
Yeah.
So most of this is all going to stay as the woodlands as it is. It's some frontage lot.
So maybe we can figure out time, maybe we could go out there and take a look at it. Maybe I'll share this information with you and you can put together, maybe you have the details that he would ask for.
Yes, sir.
And then also if
Ma'am.
you want to look at it and think about what you want to do and come up with some concepts for those. And I think some perk tests would probably be useful for you because that's going to really dictate what you can do and where you can do things.
Well, that might be putting the cart before the horse, because we need to know where the boundaries lines are with this wetlands, because that's going to determine how we subdivide this.
Okay.
I don't want to spend money on perks if we have no idea what's
Okay.
going on.
I just didn't know if it could be helpful
Because this
for
is
you.
definite. I've actually been working with Mr. Krawowski for over a year on just this part. So this is definite. The perks, those, we don't know what we're going to get yet until we finalize this.
Okay.
Well, I think the issue would be is that a 200-foot buffer coming off, and now with the beaver flooding it, the pond was back in here before. Now it's flooding all the way up into right next to that landing. So then if we call that now the edge of the pool and not where it was back in here, all of a sudden 200 feet ends up over in here, and it becomes an issue.
Okay.
We work with your bylaw on the 50 feet, no structure and everything else. Nothing's going on in the back. Anything from, it's this. Nothing, so everything down in here becomes habitat for spotted salamander.
And even if you go out there now, because the beavers are there, we can't do anything
Yeah.
about them until the fall. It's a pond.
Yeah.
You're not going to see
All
anything.
right, so you'd like to take a look at it?
I think it would be useful and maybe try to get the vernal pool biologist and share I'll share this information with Glenn.
Thank
So a
you.
continuation?
We've waited this long, we can wait a bit longer, but, we'd
Yeah.
like to get, this finalized.
We appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Continuation?
We'll hopefully to get that scanned or and sent over.
Yep.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.
All in favor?
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right. We are now at 6:30.
Thank you.
Request for determination of applicability, 55 South Shore Drive, installation of an in-ground pool with a developed yard.
Hi, Paul. Just introduce yourself and your address, and you can talk about your project. I'll pull up your plans for you.
Paul Facto, 55 South Shore Drive, Sturbridge, Mass. Owner. Suppose that the plans is pretty self-explaining. I tried to break it up as easy as possible.
Go out just a little bit. Okay, so this is a request for determination of applicability. A few of us did go out there on our site visit last Tuesday. Existing single-family house developed, existing yard. They did have an above-ground pool. They are proposing to put an in-ground pool all within the existing yard. We do have what appears to be an isolated wetland off to the side.
Thoughts, recommendations,
Yep,
Becky?
yep. So, right, it appears that it's probably isolated land subject to flooding. Unknown if it's jurisdictional to Wetlands Protection Act, definitely reviewable under our local bylaw. Despite that being said, if it's with, jurisdictional for Wetlands Protection Act, considering that this is installation of a pool within a developed yard, I believe this is something that we can review and condition through the RDA process. And for conditions, I definitely recommend, our usual typical construction conditioning, erosion controls, pre-construction meeting with their contractor, just make sure they understand, where the limit of work is and, issues with stockpiling and not obviously stockpiling within the resource area, but those are all small, kind of minor conditions. So, when we were out there, couple observations, we noted, something I talked to Paul about afterwards on the phone, the clearing around the isolated wetland and maybe trying to kind of leave some of that natural vegetation there. Something that came up afterwards, Paul asked, there's 2 additional trees right at the back of the rear of the yard, 2 dead oaks that, near the isolated wetland that probably affected by the gypsy moth. So we'd like to include those. I don't see any concerns with that. That's something that we can condition, have them cut, leave in place on the forest floor.
Yeah, that's what I said. If you want, I can just drop them and leave them, let them erode right there.
Yeah, no concerns.
Yep.
That way there, nobody's going in there to get them out. It's just drop them and leave them.
Make more of a mess pulling them out.
Yeah, gypsy moss did some damage over there.
Around all the lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good with everything that you said, Becky, if you put those in conditions. I'm good with that.
Me too.
Likewise.
One additional comment. It looked like, I think we saw some maybe yard waste or something
Oh, that's true.
that was starting to be dumped, in that depression. So I'd like to prevent that. from-
Clippings and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah,
No, that's
so-
what she said, and she asked that you guys wanted 25 more feet. I said, I have no problem with that.
Excellent.
Because I don't use that lot really. I just keep it short so ticks and stuff aren't as bad.
Understood. Yep, okay.
Agreement?
Yep.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Yep. I make a motion that we close the public hearing?
Second.
Wait, before I do that, anybody in the audience like to speak on this? Sorry about that. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'd like to remake my motion to close the public hearing.
And I'll second the motion.
Discussion? All in favor? All right.
Next, I'd like to make a motion that we issue the determinations under the Mass Wetland Protection Act and Town of Sturbridge Wetland bylaws with the appropriate indications from Becky relative to an order of conditions as we just discussed.
Second that.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
Thanks,
coming
Paul.
in.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask that you sign the determination for me. Paul, I can have this ready for you tomorrow, if you can get here before 12 to pick it up, otherwise I can mail it to you.
Actually, I can probably get it either way.
Okay,
I'll get in touch with them to get in touch with you.
okay, if you just wanna come in probably maybe after 9 o'clock, so I can make all my copies and stuff
Alright,
like
no
that.
problem at all.
Okay.
Alright, thank you.
I think this came with it. Is that yours?
I was gonna say, that's not mine.
That's mine then, my version. We are now at 6:45. We have a notice of intent, DEP number file number 300-1033. Continued from May 21st, 11 McGilpin and 6 Apple Hill Road. Construction of a single-family house, associated appurtenances, and the installation of a sewer and water line. How you doing?
How you doing? Peter Iott, 11 McGilpin Road owner. I forgot. I should know by now.
You're getting too used to
sitting in that seat. I am.
So, since our last meeting, we received a revised plan. So on the revised plan, he's extended his infiltration kind of trench here for the driveway to pick up runoff. He's also shown a little detail with the gutters being, house gutter system to be tied into the dry well. A little more information on the chamber on here. And then also, he's had his engineer give us the upland wetland calculations that you asked for that bylaw. I did receive an email file from Jean Bubon, the town planner, kind of confirming that she also received the plan and the information, and that she believes that since the lot, I can find that file, which I might not have.
Well, it does apply. She said in her letter that it didn't apply. Because 90%, 35,403 is, there's not
Well,
greater than 90% of.
this lot was divided in,
Am I getting that wrong? Stephen did the
getting it
math on
wrong.
that.
It's,
30,
it's not 90%, no.
No.
It's not greater than 90%.
yeah.
We would have to have, like 90-some thousand, right?
Right. Okay, good.
yeah, the lot was
Yeah.
divided in the 80s,
Yeah.
so even if it didn't meet it, she was saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else? Do we need it on that?
No, I think those are the only things that we asked for, so we made the change to the plan and provided that information about the bylaws.
The DPW doing the, I
Oh,
don't know,
yeah.
did you get a chance to talk
Yep,
to
so
Butch?
DPW did add some riprap and some smaller stone to the front to help with that. Did talk to him about, he knows that he has to get a driveway permit and really coordinate the installation. That's something everybody has to do anyways, and they would work with him on sizing the pipe, et cetera, maybe extending the stone at that time, so.
Good.
Well, looks like he has done what we asked him to do.
Yep.
Meets our requirements.
Anybody in the audience like to comment? Pat, or, I know,
Excuse me,
okay, go ahead, you can go ahead.
did not do all the things that we asked for. There's one significant thing that I requested at each one of the public hearings that no one will pay attention to, but I feel very strongly about. We have in Massachusetts a 100-foot buffer zone that we, the members of the Wetland Protection Act, are supposed to look at carefully before we violate it. And it is with our approval that you can do anything between the 50-foot and the 100-foot. That is about as close to our 50-foot no-build zone as you can get, and it's an extremely lengthy driveway. And I feel very, very strongly that in the long run, that is going to prove to be the final detriment to that wetland that we see on the left-hand side of that document. So for that reason, I am still not in favor of the plan. But
May I ask what we would, he's outside of the 50, and we're to look.
our job is outside of the 100. If it's within the 100, we must look at it and either approve it or disapprove it. And my particular bent is because of the length of that driveway, that water is going to cause problems in that wetland, in my opinion.
Okay, let me finish what I was gonna say. What would you recommend? You're right, I know exactly what we're supposed to be doing in a buffer zone. That, construction is allowed if we can be convinced that it's not gonna cause an issue to the resource. So, here we are, we're the experts. What would make you happy, or what would make us happy, that the resource area, which is still 50 feet away, would not, and not gonna do any construction in that 50 foot, what would make this commission feel that that is okay to be that close to the edge of the 50? What would he do?
If it was moved away from the edge of that 50, which it perfectly well could be.
How far?
Steve, I'm not the engineer. That's up to them to determine, but it is my opinion that that is too close to the 50, and it extends all the way up a hill. And we already have two major roads impinging upon that wetland. Fiscal and McGilpin both make the confluence, and that wetland is being hit by both of those roads, and now you're pinning off the third side of the road. And I just object to it. I know that the rest of the commission is in favor of it, that's fine. So we take a vote, and it's 4-1.
Well, I still would, the engineer is gonna know where to put the driveway, and the engineer might have some suggestion about a berm or a curb on the driveway or something that we would say that there was not going to be a problem.
So I think the intent would be to have the driveway pitched towards this infiltration trench that we asked them to add on there. You're not going to capture everything, obviously, but hopefully that might capture some coming down if it's pitched the right way, which can be conditioned.
And there's 50 feet of vegetation and whatever that is going to be helping protect the resource area.
In my opinion, that's the key. I think I'm not going to be comfortable with this unless we can put in the conditions that we need to, essentially, because we're building within the 100-foot, I'd like to have it put in the conditions that this be, basically a no-touch, or, we don't do any, this doesn't turn into yard at some point.
Right. That's.
You show the tree line here, and I know.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on that, and
I understand. And the problem is that, when we approve things like this, that's what we hear, and then, something happens, the lot gets sold, and it turns out that this then becomes a lawn. So I want to see something put into the conditions that says, we're concerned about it being this close. This is, a significant wetland. There's a stream running through here. I agree. I don't want this to be impacted, but I don't think, I don't see where he could possibly put this house that would make a difference. You can't move it back here because you're gonna have an even longer driveway. So, I see this as probably the only option that he has for building on this lot. But I do agree that I would like to protect this as much as possible, so.
And when I was here a couple weeks ago, that was the issue, and, I extended that gully going around, going down that driveway all the way to the road, because, you voiced that, concern then. And, you had mentioned maybe moving the driveway, and we really can't, you had mentioned that it was kind of dangerous, which it is, and the way that whole yard pitches or lot pitches, we can't really move anything. So, I would definitely not touch any of the trees in there. There's no, there's no reason to. The whole yard right at the crest of that driveway on the left, it all starts to pitch down towards the wetlands. We put that gully in all the way down, and do everything that you guys asked, and that was the thing when I was here a couple weeks ago. So we added that, thinking that was going to solve the problem of that.
It's always a trust situation, and we trust you. but we don't know exactly what's going to happen economically to you or to us, and consequently, all properties are liable to be sold. And if they are, you don't know what the new person coming in will do. So what we have to have is things in writing as part of the deed that specify exactly what you can and cannot do relative to a wetland.
Yeah, the orders of conditions does get recorded on the deed as part of the process, and when the project is finished, we would issue a certificate of compliance. We're required to by law, and that way it kind of says that you've completed your order. A lot of orders have perpetual conditions, certain things in them. This could be something that's added as a perpetual condition that anyone buying the property in the future would see that there's an order of conditions that was for the property. They'd see the certificate. They could see any perpetual conditions on there. Sometimes it's stormwater management,
Yep.
restoration plantings, things like that. So it could be incorporated in there and covered, so it's.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I wish we talked about it 2 weeks ago, but, it's just, I'm anxious to kind of get this ball rolling. I mean, it's been dragging on.
All right,
and I can-
anybody in the audience like to speak?
Yeah, I just, Ted Courier, 13 McGilpin. I heard you talking about the 90% on the upland rule, and I just don't understand it. So, has he met his obligation on the upland?
He's met his obligation, 2 ways.
Right.
2 ways?
2 ways. One, it's not eligible because this lot was created before the bylaw.
Grandfather.
Yeah, so it's grandfathered.
Okay. You mentioned there's not much you could do. Probably a smaller house would take him away from that, right?
Would you?
So, being in a butter, looking out my back door, I'll be looking instead of at woods, which I don't own, at a house. And there's only one person in the world that can build on that lot, right? Because nobody else could perk it or run a sewer line to it except another abutter, right?
Well, that's correct, Tad, but eventually there'll be sewer lines down McGilpin Road.
Right.
I'm not trying to be a cynic, but I mean, they
Yeah.
can go anywhere.
Yeah.
That project that was in before you on Fiscal, the ideal would be for that to get the sewer line, which is very close.
And I'll actually still have
I
to
don't
pay,
mean to be-
if it goes on
Okay,
McGilpin, I'll
yeah.
still have to pay,
Yeah.
regardless of having it tied in on
Right,
Apple Hill, so I'll
right.
still have to pay just from.
Yeah, it's
being on
just,
McGilpin.
I'm looking for, it's a quality of life change for me. It's a potential loss of property value. And again, I only see one person who can do this right now, and so, I'm trying to prevent that.
Well, it's not gonna be property loss, I'm gonna put a $420,000 house there right next to your house.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna add value to your house.
Well, no, because I'm losing woods, and,
It's just woods that's overgrown, though. It's not
Right,
adding any
right.
value.
It depends on the buyer.
You know?
You don't own the
I'd
woods.
keep this on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense, but.
All right, well, those were my concerns, so
Yeah.
you answered. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, do I have
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
a
I'll second that.
discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Looks like I'm making a motion here. I make a motion that we approve DEP file number 300-1033 as amended with various items that we have requested. And
Yeah.
I guess our standard conditions, we're also going to potentially add a perpetual condition that the area shown as the limit of clearing here will be a perpetual no-touch zone beyond that to protect that wetland.
And I would add that we could allow, he had asked about invasive species removal, we could do that through an approved plan, if you'd like to. There's a lot of multiflora rows there, so.
Sure.
Anything else?
Nope.
No, I think that was a good discussion about the edge of that 50. I'm glad that we had that discussion and clarified it, and Becky's got some ideas of how to put that perpetual language in the lead. I mean, in the sorry. In the deed.
So I have a motion.
All right. So, you have a second, right?
I'll second it. I don't think we seconded it, but I'll second it.
Yeah. Discussion on it?
Yep.
All in favor? All opposed? Passes.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your patience.
So Pete, I have to draft your permit, so which are orders of conditions, and then it goes to the board for review, approval, and signature. So that is another step, but that'll be done. You can call me and I can kind of talk to you about the process, so you're welcome. You wanna come up? It's 226 Roy, right?
Yes, so I'm Josh Roy, 226 Roy Road, property owner. Here at request of the commission, in regards to an open permit, I guess you could call it, on my property.
Right.
From what I understand, that you guys had a site visit last week or the week before, while doing some other business at a neighbor's house, and you had some concerns with some of the activities that were going on in the property, if I understand correctly. So I'm here to discuss and figure out how we can appease everybody.
All right, Becky, you're on. I didn't like the site visit, so.
All right, so, I mean, I have some photos that I can
Yeah.
show you guys, but, so this is a project that was permitted before I started, so I wasn't here when you had the discussions during the public hearing process, but there was a lot of discussion about a temporary driveway. It's not shown on the plan, but you had discussions about it, if you remember that. You know, Josh, I think, is pretty much wrapping up his project. The driveway's still there. You had some concerns. You wanted to ask him to come in. Do you want me to show the photos
Sure.
for others who weren't
Yeah.
there?
Or between the few of us, we can describe what our concerns were.
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, obviously, the temporary driveway, that needs to be pulled out. And of notice was a lot of trash, or I'll just say material, it might not be trash, might be good lumber, but stuff thrown into the
Yeah,
the
we
wetland.
had a pile of lumber that was stacked up against the shed that blew over in that windstorm a week or so ago.
that's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I had it all stacked up, and the wind took it on me and blew it all over. So I just got to get that cleaned up.
I believe there was some clippings, but in that area.
Waste.
Or that were in the wetland.
Is that along the roadway?
That was along the road, so I don't know.
Yeah, and that's not us, and I don't know who's doing that, to be honest with you.
I could also see over here where we originally had those concerns. We had some discussion about it when we were on site. Pretty sure I saw some piles along the wetland on this side, right in here.
Yeah, that's not on my property though. The end of the green where the green shed is sitting currently is the end of my property line.
Okay, so can you show me with a point where your property line is?
Let's see. So this is the property line right about here, I believe.
Uh-huh.
The green shed is sitting right here right now, which is to be moved. It's not staying there. It's coming back up over here.
So you're saying this isn't your property right in here?
I don't believe that there's any clippings in this area here. I believe they're over here.
Are these two sheds?
Is this the property line here? I'm not even familiar.
Yep, yeah, this is the property line.
Yeah, it's sitting like right in here.
I think we were looking at the sheds on the site, so maybe that's the shed we saw, but this is, are these the locations of the sheds
No,
as of now?
this shed is now turned, and this one's not here anymore. This one got just moved out of the way over
Okay.
here. It's sitting right on the property line.
Maybe that's what we saw over there, and it was just a little bit further, but it might have been on the property. We don't know.
But the shed that's sitting here now is actually touching right on the flagged wetland. That's going to be moved. That's coming way up over here by the road. There's a container sitting here now. I don't know if you guys saw that when you were there.
Yep.
But it's going to be sitting right there next to that container. So that's about as far away as I can get from the wetland as you can get.
Okay, so, yeah, a few questions concerned with maybe those changes, or if there's piles there, let's clean those up. But when I called Josh to speak to him, he had had an idea of maybe keeping the driveway there, so I said it's something
Well,
that you definitely need to have
See,
discussion with the
we
commission.
did put it in temporarily to get the house in. If you remember, it was a modular house that we had to get in there.
Right.
And actually, I believe it was Steve that had said, yeah, you know, I don't have a problem them doing that, but we got to get it out when we're done. And we, you know, we agreed to that. Now that the driveway has been put in, it's actually been used for a lot of different things. The DPW is now using it to turn around because in the wintertime with the plow and the sander, they can't get up there. So they've been using it to turn around. And it's also the secondary turnaround for the school bus, because if the school bus turnaround is blocked by a car or something, the bus can come up and loop around that way. So, you know, and on top of that, it's also been more convenient for us because especially in the summertime being on the lake, that whole road gets clogged up and there's not a lot of parking. There's not another way for us to get out, so it's given us another way out. So I am not opposed, you know, to, you know, obviously if the board says, hey, no, it's got to come out, then that's what it is. But if we can have a discussion about possibly keeping it, I would like to, you know, possibly discuss that. I also, you know, we talk about disturbing the wetlands. If you notice, the vegetation's grown in nicely now, and I really hate to go back and disturb all that again. You know, we didn't change the elevations much. I dumped when I put that driveway in, I don't know if you remember, but where it came off the dirt road, there was a couple trees that were there that we had taken down. There was a small dip in there. I put approximately 5 yards of stone in there, or riprap stone, and then I just went over the top of it with some asphalt grindings, which are still there today. So we didn't really change the elevation much. It's just now we have been driving over it. So, you know, if there's a way that we can keep it, I would like to do that. But if you guys are saying it needs to come out, then that's what we got to do.
How did you see it, Steve?
If you had come and proposed that, we probably would have said crushed stone and not grindings.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well, the permit is still open too, so I haven't even come to say, hey, my work is done.
Right.
You know, we're wrapping it up.
Yep.
No, we are. I mean, I've been wrapping up. I've been working my rear off cleaning up that property because we had trees down that were in the wetland that I had to clean out when the guy dropped the trees. I had National Grid come up there. They cut all kinds of stuff down and left it in the wetlands. I cleaned all that out, so I've done my part at trying to preserve the area. I understand that it looks a little messy right now because I got some lumber there and things like that. I get all that, and willing to clean that up. And if one of the conditions is, yeah, you can keep it, but we got to take the grindings off and put some stone on there, then I'm good with that. Or gravel, whatever you guys want to do. To me, it's more important to try to at least keep the access there over whether it's grindings or stone or whatever.
well, we just, normally, those grindings become impervious, and the stone less likely.
Yeah. We're gonna get to this because I've been working on it. The state of New Jersey DEP has done testing, and there are poison carcinogens going into the water table. They don't allow any grindings, loose grindings, below 2 feet above water level anywhere in the state of New Jersey. And so there are indications that because it's grindings, the particles are smaller, they're poisonous, they have lead in them, and unless they are completely compacted, they've got about 4 or 5 different processes that they're using.
Lead, arsenic, and mercury.
What?
Lead, arsenic, and mercury.
Well, yeah. So we're not, right now, if you ask me, and I'm just one person, I don't want grindings, loose grindings, anywhere around wetlands.
Now, in that study, is that older asphalt that had those chemicals in it versus the newer stuff that we've used in the last 20 years? Because I know where they came from. They came from I-84.
No, it does, there's no, they don't use any difference, they don't give any difference between the two. What it is because of what they're making them out of.
Yep.
And the fact that they're being ground up, so you're getting fine dust.
Yep.
That you wouldn't get from
An asphalt surface.
tar.
But even that begs the question. The question is, what do we do about a driveway that was going to be removed, but that has not been removed, but that is within the buffer zones of a wetland?
Not only that, it is within 2 feet of the water
Yeah,
table.
it's close, yep.
It's right at the water table.
It's there.
So that, long-term,
I understand the good neighbor part of it, because that's really sweet. But I don't understand what the solution is. You have a very compact lot.
Yep, we do.
What would have happened? He's already said he would remove those grindings. If we were to allow it, if we were to allow it, we would want stone and not those grindings. Let's just say, day one comes in and he said, that's really a nifty place to have this little driveway for the reasons that you said. How would we have approached that?
Was it yard previously, or was it forested?
Well, actually, it was, the corner had a couple trees on it, if you remember correctly. There was vegetation.
We did not want to
As you
come
came
down.
into the property, it was, there was some gravel in there. We used to actually drive through there at one point, and we used to keep boats in there. This is going back years ago, you
Yeah.
know, my grandfather or whatever, but it definitely wasn't used all the time as a right, you know, as a rite of passage.
It
or
did
whatever.
have trees.
On the corner, it did, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a lot of heartache on my part about losing those trees. A lot of
Yeah,
trees
that was-
had to come down in order to get the house in.
Yeah, I think we took down an additional 2 or 3 trees on that corner.
Yeah.
To get
I remember the discussion because we were trying to figure out, us non-engineers, but we understand trucks and cranes, and I remember that it was no way to get that in there without taking those trees down, and that was tough.
Steve,
for
if
us.
it makes you feel any better, I did plant 4 new trees.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad. I have, wait, I mean,
And we plan on doing some more, and I don't believe that was actually in the order that we had to plant any, but we did.
it should have been.
oh,
if
if
it
Barnacle
wasn't.
was on the committee, it was.
Yeah, I'm surprised if we let that go by.
I think to Steve's point, if this had come in and it had been on the original plan to say, we want a driveway there, because of the proximity of that wetland, I don't think we would have
We would not
approved
have
that.
It's not a
Yeah.
chance.
So I'm sorry, I know it's convenient, and I know, I hate to remove something that the school buses, can use or whatever, but that wasn't there
That's
before.
access, fire and everything, because like I said, if you come up there on a Saturday or Sunday, you can't get up there.
Yeah. Well, it's the wetland, and, our job is to protect that, and, I don't think having a permanent driveway there within feet of that, wetland is something that,
Could he,
So I have an understanding,
the
can I
opposite
ask,
way?
and just so I have an understanding, whether that is a gravel path going through there, or it's a lawn going through there, what is the difference in impact that is having on the wetland?
it's,
So I understand, because that's the part I can't fathom, because I didn't actually say, okay, there's actually an existing water area there, and I filled it in, right? I didn't. I'm on the outside of the marked wetland, and I just changed the type of material that is existing there. So I
But
just
there
wanna
might be
understand.
some trees that would be planted there that magically had come down.
my intention with that originally was that it should be restored back to what it was, instead of, yeah.
Is your question, are you asking us what the lake would look like if it was all gravel all the way around it?
Try that again, sorry?
Are you asking us if there was all gravel all the way around the lake and there were no trees?
I don't think that's what he's asking.
Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm asking in that,
Do you see that as one end of the spectrum?
no, I'm just simply asking in that 25 or 30-foot stretch right there, with me changing what I did on that particular area, what effect is that having on the wetland?
The problem is it becomes a parking lot. So now, it's a convenient place to park cars.
Okay.
And you've got, the pollution factor from having it be a parking lot versus having it be natural space that allows infiltration, that isn't leaching chemicals and stuff right next to the wetland. That's the problem.
how wide is it right now, Josh? Can you,
The the driveway itself?
Yeah, could you-
10 foot wide?
can you shift it away into an area that maybe is disturbed and then restore a little bit closer to
Well, I
the
mean, the
wetland?
reason why it comes in where it came in the first place, because there's a telephone pole right there on the corner.
Yep.
So that was the problem we had with trying to get the house in, is we had to be
And it was
on
the
other
turn for the
side.
trailer
Correct.
that was
Yeah,
holding
right.
the
Oh, yeah,
house.
because it is right on the edge of the wetland
So
there.
it's literally right on the end. And
Who's the owner of the wetland?
who's the owner of the wetland?
Yeah, where You said that the clippings were not on your
Well, there's
property.
part of it that's mine and part of it that's my neighbor's. I own some of the wetland, yes.
You said the clippings were on your neighbor's.
Yeah, it would be my
And
neighbor's property.
Who's your neighbor?
That's my uncle's property.
It's your uncle's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I know I was just out there, but I was looking at the driveway and I was looking at the pile of lumber in the wetland, and I really wasn't paying a lot of attention to the buffer, the 25, the 50, and so on. Could you just refresh my memory here and,
This is the edge of the wetland here, Steve.
okay?
The driveway right now goes right through here.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
right
the 25-foot.
That's right where we parked.
Yeah.
This is the 50-foot.
It's right on. I'm not disputing where it's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out for his,
Yeah.
because this is the buffer line we're interested in, the 25-foot, no disturb. And that's why we originally didn't want this to happen. But then we said, all right, there was basically, you had no other option. You had to do this.
Yep.
So we allowed you to put a temporary driveway in there so that you could get the house in, but this is a no disturb zone. There's not supposed to be anything happening in here other than natural vegetation allowed to grow to protect that wetland, and that's the problem, is that,
And
now
now
we
we
have a
should
driveway.
Now we should be able to take the word temporary away from it and make it the way that it was before.
Yeah.
And that should include herbaceous growth of some sort. So if not trees because of already having an existing canopy, then it should be some sort of shrubs. But it should be situated so that you're not going to have buses turn around and leaking their oils and greases into the wetland. You're not going to have DPW trucks doing the same kind of thing, or other cars, although cars are much better than they always used to be. And the other part of it is what Ed was saying about the grindings. Even if you took the grindings out, every single one of the vehicles that goes in there further compacts that and reduces the amount of absorption that's taking place. And part of what that wetland system is supposed to be doing is permitting absorption to get right back into that wetland. That's helping to purify the water that you're living there for in the first place.
Well, I think the grindings are off the table, but I agree. I mean, it's right in,
All right, we need a plan. He has a plan now.
Right.
That he's got to execute. And,
Right.
if you're not executing that plan, you need to come back with a new one for us to look at. And we need to know when you're gonna get this done, too.
Yeah, but we don't have to make it onerous either, because if what we're looking for is a plan that talks specifically about that driveway, then he can take a blow-up of that plan and simply rework it in your own way.
Oh, yeah.
Pen and paper. You don't have to go
what are you
through
suggesting he's gonna change on that plan?
the driveway.
Whatever it is he's requesting, but what Dave's saying is he doesn't have to go have an engineer do this.
Right.
He-
I mean, honestly, it seems to me that the feeling from the board is it's gotta come out, so, I mean, I'm not gonna sit
That's-
here and say, okay.
that's my
let's have-
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My point is,
Do it all over again,
Yeah.
just for you guys to say, no, we
Yeah,
can't.
well-
Let's just make a decision, if it's gotta come out.
that's
Yeah.
that's the point I was.
I think what they were trying to say though, Josh, is, I mean, there is a formal process to ask for an amendment to your permit. So you do have the right to go through that process and they can officially, vote when you have that public hearing. This is just more, I guess, informal for you, to make that decision how you want to move forward. So, meaning the permit is valid for 3 more months. So, if the project isn't done at that time, you technically, within a month before it expires, you need to ask for an extension under state law. So you just need to submit a request form to me and I can provide it to you and they can extend your permit for whatever time period you need to finish it, another year or whatnot, so.
Okay.
All right?
And that's the only concerns with that?
That's it.
Okay, very good.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
No. Big no next to that.
179?
Yep.
Gentlemen, you got microphones? We have 2, we have only 2?
Yeah, tonight.
Hey, how's it going?
So, right, so the project team isn't coming in this evening. They did provide me with an email correspondence today, because I did follow up to see what has progressed since our last site visit. So, last Thursday, Mr. Halterman and myself met Chuck from CME, who's the town engineer, on site with Ben Tully, one of the property owners, to kind of review the site and the area. We did go down towards Chad's house. He came out and met us. Engineer walked the whole area. Really looked at a lot of different things. When we left there, we had some good plans kind of moving forward, not looking at the stormwater basin design that they originally had planned. When they had designed that, they had not taken into consideration water table or other things that wouldn't make it possible to put some stormwater management back in that forested section. Since our original discussions, we were going off the plan from 2011, which did not show wetland resource areas back there. Burton Engineering, who's the client's engineer, did have Art Allen go out there, I think mostly to look at soil samples.
You guys heard this?
No.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think Chad knows this a little bit.
Yeah.
So they did flag some wetlands down at the toe of the slope, a little bit further closer to the stone wall, etc. So the idea of the basin down there just isn't going to work now, and I think the property owner understands that. So when we left the site visit, we had a couple ideas that they were going to explore and talk to their engineer about. And what we talked about was around the edge of the parking lot, removing the millings and looking at what type of underground infiltration they can do there to catch water kind of sheet flowing off into that. So maybe they could do a design there with underground tanks that could capture that. Also looking at maybe capturing the roof runoff where it's coming off and infiltrating that in that spot versus having that come down the parking lot and have to infiltrate into the stormwater management system, which would actually probably be in the property owner's benefit, because when it comes off the roof, it's clean water. You can just do a dry well, as we know, versus, some kind of pre-treatment, system for parking lot water. So, Callisto Burton sent me an email today, just kind of going over. He said he had a site visit yesterday. He inspected the straw bales that were previously installed, found them to be intact, observed no evidence of washout or erosion behind the bales. He says after visiting the sites a couple times, he questions if the parking lot is causing significant drainage issues beyond the site. They do understand that they have a parking lot, and by law, they have to obviously manage their stormwater on site, and they will proceed to move forward doing that. He did say, they talked to Chuck from CME, our engineer, after our site visit, and they're looking at all alternatives for that design. Said it's not feasible to have plans ready for their presentation this evening. They'll be starting to do test pits. That's something we talked about out there. They need to do some test pits in the parking lot to make sure they could do infiltration. They're going to do test pits to confirm subsurface conditions, followed by informal discussions between their office and our town engineer on design parameters. They anticipate that the test pits will be done within a week, and once completed, they'll give us an update as to when they'll be ready to submit plans. So looks like, provided, we obviously have to do the test bits, but provided they do the test bits, it's found that they can infiltrate there. It looks like we'll hopefully have a plan in the parking lot that will resolve their stormwater runoff. So.
Okay, so a couple questions. You said that they've now determined that the basin is not feasible.
Correct.
That's because of the infiltration, the soils that they looked at, that's not...
Yeah, they didn't provide us the results of their soils, but even just our engineers out there believes that there's a high water table there, yep, and that it won't be able to function. And with the presence of some wetlands at one part of the toe of the slope, it's not going to be possible. So.
They flagged it as a wetland.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And we lose all those trees, and I don't know, and I don't think that's a benefit to
Right.
cutting, 3
Yep.
acres of trees
Yep.
to put in a
Yeah.
giant basin.
So,
Good point.
And you counted the number of trees that would have come down, and it was significant.
yeah.
Well, so this is a better direction,
Right.
Right.
if it works.
And the direction of the roof drain inspector?
They were going into the parking lot from what we could see. So, but that's also adding to that
That's
flow
gonna be-
and that
so it's gonna be a
channelization.
part of it, right?
Right. We've asked them
Have
to.
they mentioned it?
Well, he didn't say it here, but that was mentioned.
Because I
To
don't
them.
forget it.
No, we won't. And our
I think
engineers
in
on
any
it.
document that we get, there has to be a clear indication as to where that vast amount of water goes. Because that's contributing to this entire problem.
Right. We walked up front too, and there's a section up in the front that flows down, and we could see where that water flow goes. And there's a lot of water that comes down that hillside. We found on one portion of Chad's property where DPW put another pipe in that I wasn't aware of. Yeah.
Well, they actually, Chad Moreno, 7 Blueberry Lane. Sorry about that. When we did do the walkthrough, I walked it with the engineer, and due to the time frame when he did do the walkout, we did not have any substantial rain. We had like light mist storms, but nothing with water buildup. So my pictures that I do have on my phone that we previously run through was good documentation. He still could watch the water path and then see.
Yeah.
He was having trouble finding the path. That's why when they called me out to walk it, because I have from my property or a corner of Blueberry all the way up to the hill of flowing water, so he could go back and forth. He didn't contact me of getting any of the pictures. He made notes and said to verify it. He took his pictures. But the drain pipe that went under Blueberry Lane, they actually dug a little trench but stopped right at my property line. So the water, the second spot was coming down at my 5 Blueberry Lane, which is still deeded as 1 lot now. It's still 7, but it's the area of 5 Blueberry Lane where all the woods are. It's bypassing that drainage pipe, and then that's what's going into my other neighbors, and then going across the street and wiping out Mr. Richardson's driveway as well. So with that walkthrough was quite informative, but also I do have a question that we'll present to the board, because that area, the wetland, has been extended and it is blue flagged, and I was told now I can't do any work in my yard because of the wetlands.
Well, no, you weren't told you couldn't do any work in your yard, but probably not a good idea to bring an excavator out and start digging that swale that leads to the pipe.
Who told you that?
Me. Or they said that you may want to hold off, because right on the other side of that wall, and going by the conservation guidelines, you have to have an approved plan within a 250-foot mark to even.
Well, no, it's not.
You made the comment that you were gonna bring a earth-moving equipment, and we just said, whoa, time out, you can't do that.
Well, then I changed it to a powerful shovel running on diesel.
Yeah, right.
Chuck from CME did recommend kind of building up the berm where the stone wall is behind your properties, because water flowing down could hit that berm and then enter that small swale that leads to the pipe.
Right.
And, depending on the extent of what you need to do for that, but that small portion of your property, you just thought it wouldn't be a good idea to bring an excavator and just kind of redo all that, but work with DPW because it is their drainage pipe too, so.
Yeah, we just don't want to get a call that's, Chad Maramo's out there with a D9. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he extended his flags down that far or anything. I don't think he went past the property either, so.
Right.
So we are to the next meeting for.
Yeah.
Yes?
Buck Smith, 9 Blueberry Lane.
Yeah.
I have a concern of something you said earlier about the carcinogens coming off of grindings.
Grindings, yeah.
Is there any way to tell what type of damage that has done, not done?
No, I don't think that's, I can, state of New Jersey, California, Washington, our own DEP. I've been going online and reading. Give me your email and I'll send you over some stuff to read.
All right, I'm just curious. I'm still stumped in the beginning, at the whole beginning processes here, and I'm baffled. I have a letter issued from the commission April 18th of 2012, clearly stating what can and can't be done with that property.
Which property?
The 179 Main,
Okay.
in the back.
Okay.
I also have another one from the planning board dated May 23rd, 2012,
Yeah?
with stipulations that had to be met before, in order to close out the permit on that property. Now, through extreme diligence on a lot of people's part, we could find no paperwork that even shows that any of the onuses here were met.
So that's
Anything.
the
We sort of know
planning
at
department's
least the one that
determination.
was
their
not
special
met,
permit.
because it said that when they were gonna fill that it had to be with stone. Specifically, I read that myself.
But do we have a copy of it, Steve?
2 copies of an as-built plan shall be provided to the planning department. Those can't be found. Trees to be added, that was there. There were some other ones here.
Well, the main thing to me is that it said stone, there was nothing about
That
grindings.
was the as-built. I think it was 6. There's no notation on the plan that good gravel will be incorporated in the existing surface for the rear parking lot. This shall be added to the plans and revised. Who knows? There's no plans.
I think this is something that can be leveraged in the whole discussion of how they remove material and turn it into a better infiltrator.
But
I
there's
think
also one signed by Aaron E. Jock, conservation agent, about no stumping of trees approved for removal, no impervious surfaces to be added within conservation jurisdiction, and any areas of disturbance must be stabilized upon completion of work.
Right, and that's because at the time they came in, the area that they were working in, which was shown within Concom's jurisdiction, was they were only adding plantings and taking a few trees out. So those were the conditions they were given, which they didn't follow. But they weren't doing anything within conservation's area besides those small things. So they were issued a letter of determination at that time.
But the planning board, it's their jurisdiction to make sure that there's stormwater management and their,
Conditions of their permit.
right, and that was the conditions for their permit. And you're right, there does not appear to be any follow-up. They did not follow the permit that said stone. They put down grindings, and they have become quite impervious, as we've all walked down there and seen it.
But we need to get a copy of that, because obviously.
Well, we need a copy of the plan they think they're working to.
Well,
We should also get a copy
all
of
that could
this
be
stuff.
found was this dated, to my understanding, was May 23rd, 2012.
Right.
And this is from
Planning board?
planning board.
Yeah.
Sandy Gibson Quigley signed it.
Yeah, it is signed, stamped by the
Sandy
Office of
Yeah.
Town Clerk.
But you're right, there's nothing,
Yeah.
no follow-up from
Well, that was what I asked him about at the last meeting, if you remember, with, regarding the roof drainage. I said,
Correct.
well, he's saying, well, we have roof drainage, well, bring the plan.
Right,
Let us see the plan. So,
I'm just totally baffled and confused also that, this isn't a problem that just happened in January. This is a problem that we brought more attention to in January. But this has been, obviously, there were concerns in May of 2012. I'm sorry, May 2012 and April of 2012, as to what condition that property was going to be in.
well, it's ironic that everybody's coming in and saying it's been 5 to 7 years since the problem has started.
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
Now, do you have a copy of that from the planning board?
I don't have a copy of that letter.
Okay. Well,
I could probably get it from
Yeah, we can get
Jean,
one.
but I have not seen that letter.
So where's the irony in the 5 to 7 years that people are...
That's when the problem started, is when they finished this project.
That's the initial project when it started.
Right, and there was just no follow-through, and there's no paperwork.
Yeah.
There isn't even a closed permit that could
So
be found.
have you asked the planning department? Is that how you have a copy of that letter? Have they provided you with any
All the
information?
neighbors got together, and a bunch of neighbors did the research,
Okay.
and this is one of the only things they could find out, that they could come up with.
Sounds to me like they should get on the agenda for the planning board. You guys can take a look at this. I read it on his phone.
So then there's the whole process has to really start again, permits and everything else.
with
Well,
the
they'll need a
planning board.
permit through us. I don't know how it would work for the planning department. I think that'd be a
Yeah.
question for the town planner, how it works for their permit, but they might have a process that they need to go through, but I'd have to confirm that with her.
One of the interests is number 6 and number 11 on that permit. And then also, a point I would like to address, and when I actually did my numbers, I'm pleased to see that the gutters are gonna be taken into account. But also with that design in that center hedge or berm planter, that's still taking in the upper parking lot. And now that the back of that hill is zoned wetlands, does that now take into the upper parking lot as well? Because at the main entrance is kind of the crest, and even ownership, when we did that walkthrough on Thursday, he goes, this goes right to the building, and then it goes this way. So once you get to the end of the building, that is basically a runway chute down that driveway. And I have a picture showing the buildup of water that's just shooting down that driveway. And that driveway has been widened, and that's actual asphalt.
And lengthened.
Widened and lengthened. It was a very steep. That actually was one of the first few times that I actually walked it, from present to remembering the 22 years that I worked at Rum's. I know that driveway is not existing.
Same,
I'm all for somebody using their property. I definitely am, and I'm not against the gentleman using their property. However, it's affected many people's properties.
yeah.
And I understand that measures are being taken. I do. I just don't understand how it falls through the cracks. And I know you guys can't tell me that, but it's just, I'm baffled.
Right.
That there's no paperwork. Like, this is, other than this, I don't know what else there is for paperwork.
Well, you really need to go to, and I'm not passing the buck, it's just that we did not have the jurisdiction. And what we did have jurisdiction was a very small part of that, but the planning department reviewed this, gave a permit, must have had a plan, and I hate to say start over again, but they're the people that you need to be sitting in front of.
I agree.
And when I was on the planning board, and I know this is the sort of thing that people would come in and say.
When I talked to Jean, she told me on the phone that there was really no reason to, because she was working in close conjunction with the Conservation Commission, and that they were gonna do whatever the Conservation Commission deemed appropriate.
Well, in terms of,
Ouch.
in terms of stormwater management, we can say what we deem appropriate is that
Right, and
they.
I think when Jean said that, was that, I mean, what they would have been looking at is under the town stormwater bylaw. So if we're reviewing it under conservation, we would then have jurisdiction for the whole property under the stormwater bylaw. What is jurisdictional under that bylaw? This, what you're bringing forward, that they didn't follow their permit, maybe is a different thing that you can bring to planning department. So I don't know if she knew that at that time, or that was brought up at that time, that maybe the conditions of their permit had not been followed. But I think that that's what Jean was referring to, is that we're gonna review it under the stormwater bylaw because we're reviewing it under wetlands bylaw, Wetlands Protection Act. The fact that maybe they have a permit that they're in violation of, I think that maybe is another conversation with the planning department. And I think that would go to the planning board if there is an issue with their permit. The same thing would happen with us. If there was a permit that we found out afterwards had a violation, one of our orders of conditions, that could come back to us, and we would proceed under our laws with how to handle that. So I think the violation of their permit is a conversation.
I did bring that up, and
Okay.
she did say that whatever the Conservation Commission deems appropriate are
Okay.
gonna be the actions that the planning board will back.
I think there's a little more to it than that. I think that there's some documentation that needs to be found. And, clearly we've got these violations, and they should be able to act on that. And evidently we're going to be the spearhead of that action, because Gene said, so, we've already had the site visits, we've already got the engineer. The planning board needs to be brought in.
But we have to go to the planning board and say, wait a minute,
Exactly.
what's going on?
Exactly.
Well, that's kind of where I'm getting at, is why do I go when she's already,
No,
when this is already transpired?
that's up to us.
Right.
Okay, that's, I'm good with that.
That's up to us. We have to find out what's going on, because we're being held as the devil here. And if there are no plans, that's a bit scary. The public
Well, this whole
should be
thing-
able to access those plans.
And that whole thing would not have been in front of us anyway.
Well, he nodded at me that he was gonna get a set of plans when I asked about the roof drainage. I said, that's no big deal, right? You have a set of plans. And he said, yes, it's in the minutes. So,
But as of 2012, they were supposed to keep a set of plans on file.
yeah.
Yeah, 2 copies of as-built.
Yeah.
Of as-bills.
And you don't know that there's not.
Yeah, everybody that looks said they cannot find them.
Yeah, but you're going online and all that sort of thing. I'm talking about planning.
No, people went to the office.
To the planning board.
Yes, sir.
Directly in
And
the
ask them to find the
Yes, sir.
files. Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
I have a feeling that wasn't done, so.
Well, we're gonna move this thing along.
Yep.
I think the point, well, let me summarize where we are as far as, we have testing going on next week in the parking lot. The plan now is because they had the land below surveyed and it was a wetland, so they couldn't put the, at least a part of it was a wetland already, so they moved back up to the parking lot and they're looking at putting in storage there. And will be coming to us with a plan, so that's where that is right now.
So here's another question. Are they gonna be removing the millings? Well, we don't know.
We don't know, we haven't seen the
Okay,
plan yet.
so are those millings, once they're loosened, once again, toxic, so to speak, or carry the carcinogens, once you loosen them up again? Because it was, once they're compacted, they become impervious.
Right.
Now, once you loosen them again,
Well, anything that's loosened is gonna be removed.
yeah, but how are you gonna protect the wetlands from that? Or a rainstorm washing that into the that's like my whole
Well,
thing here.
they're gonna go in and they're gonna pick them up, and they're gonna put them in the back of a truck, and they're gonna put them wherever is illegal, wherever it is legal, so take those millings.
Right.
Yeah.
There is a process. As a matter of fact, we just went through the process here in town with a person who was taking out a 200-gallon oil tank that was like 50 years old. And so, first of all, they dug around the oil tank and they take samples of all the soils. They sent them off to a laboratory to find out whether there was any amount of the oily materials that might have seeped into this substrate. If there was,
Well,
then that substrate had to be dug out and, as Steve said, put on a truck and put into a place where it could be deliberately gotten rid of legally, and then the tank could be taken out. Well, they would have to do exactly the same kind of thing.
yeah, they would just.
They have to pick
we
it
would
up
make a
and move it
condition-
off.
We'd make a condition that they would
Okay.
live load it,
Yeah.
and that there would be, any construction that anybody does, construction, destruction, near a resource area, they have to do something to protect.
Okay.
So if suddenly, all of a sudden it starts raining,
Right.
that nothing is gonna impact the down the gradient there.
I.e. hay bales, et cetera.
Yeah.
Silt fence, which we don't have at the present time.
Right?
There'd be something that during construction that they would protect that. I mean, that's a standard condition that we would put in.
Okay, I'm just checking.
And that's good, and we probably would recommend live loading, which means you just pick it up and put it in a truck and not mess around.
Piling up.
Right, it just seems that there were.
Right
other-
now, DEP,
Say again, sir?
right now,
Yeah.
DEP does not treat asphalt tailings any differently than it does other solid waste. It's a part of their solid waste management program.
Okay.
So they can put it pretty much anywhere they want to.
Huh, okay.
All right, so that,
Or anywhere they can put solid waste, is what you're
anywhere they
saying.
can put solid waste, so,
Right.
I don't want you to be under an illusion there. I mean, we can work to protect the wetland, in 179, and condition it so that we don't have tailings going into your water. So, we can do that, that's not a problem. But we can't control the state or where that will go,
No, I understand
yeah.
that. I do it.
And I think it's important to point out that in that permit that they got, there was no mention of using it was supposed to be gravel.
Gravel.
Right,
Right.
so.
I couldn't hear you. What did you say, sir?
In the permit that was issued by the planning board,
Yeah.
it states gravel,
Yes.
not
Good gravel.
tailings. Good gravel,
Good
not,
gravel.
yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Instead of that gravel, we have to have good gravel.
Right. It's important. In
I
other
don't
words, what they would have done probably would have been, we would probably not be having this problem.
Right.
And I do have one question. I don't know if I missed it from the last meeting, but it looks like, I don't know if the ownership or somebody did get into the mystery of that pipe, which was the mystery pipe, but it's now confirmed the drainage that is tying into that catch basin. That especially now, that catch basin collects the upper parking lot. That's dispersing right into the wetland resources.
Right.
So they are, that is being taken into account now?
Yep.
Because I
It's a
know
part of-
on all the previous drawings that I've seen, was just taking into the lower parking lot and running.
That's where it was before this, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Okay.
now we
It
find
was
that
the
to be
mystery
illegal.
pipe.
Yeah.
Mystery pipe, you
Right.
actually can see it, it is
Yeah.
a silver
Oh, it's-
corrugated
Yeah.
pipe.
It was pretty hard to see when it was flowing.
Yeah, and even now, it's a big pipe.
Yeah.
Well, and also too, I mean, that pipe was existing prior to probably regulations when the site was built. So it's kind of a gray area about regulating pre-existing things. So if they've changed or they've increased flow into that, then I think that becomes jurisdictional, but there's some question, but I think we can work with them to add protection at the end of that to help when water is coming out of there. But I think there is still that question, I mean, if nothing's changed to that pipe, which I'm not saying nothing has changed, but if nothing's changed, then technically under state law, we don't have jurisdiction to regulate that stormwater if it's not
Even if
within that
it's
area.
directly dispersing into wetlands, where there is
If it's
the
pre-existing
what-ifs.
and there's no change, unless there's some type of change, the change would be the
Yeah.
trigger, which maybe there has been, but I think they're willing to work with us to make modifications
Yeah.
below there to manage that stormwater.
This
So I
should
think
be
we're
managed.
gonna address that
So
stormwater.
without plans, how are we gonna know if there's a change?
Well, we will have plans from them.
I know, but there's no previous plans.
What we're gonna do is we're going
Well,
to
we do
get
have-
plans
Okay.
and make sure that they're satisfactory for what we want to have done. That's really where we can stand,
Okay.
you know. If they say, you know, this and that and this and that, but they're in violation now. And
And there must have been some kind of a change,
Yeah.
because that pipe has been there forever. And you did not have problems. I played volleyball in your backyard, and there was no water there at all. And now you can't play volleyball there. You can play snorkel.
all right, well, I gotta move this thing along, guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are we now postponed to are we now moving to the next meeting?
Next meeting. right.
Okay,
June 18th.
thank you.
You're welcome.
You guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
What's new, Beth?
All right, I issued, Ed, you're aware of this, an emergency authorization.
Did you need your papers back?
Are you guys,
We would like to make a copy of them.
go ahead. It's not like we don't have phone numbers there.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I have another copy in an email somewhere else.
Okay, we now
But we'll
scan
bring
it
it back
anyways,
to you
so.
at the next meeting also.
Groovy.
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
We need to ratify the emergency authorization I issued. So this is for 70 Holland Road, Mr. Peterkin's property.
Yeah.
We have existing beaver dams there that are about to overflow or could have the potential of overflow, damage the road.
They're
Board of
only
Health.
about 6 inches from the top of
Yeah.
the road.
Board of Health issued, you don't need to sign anything, I already signed it, I just need you to
okay.
vote to ratify it. So, we worked with them, DPW, gave them information about what their options are. Highly recommended doing a water flow device, because it's the only long-term solution. I think Mr. Peterkin's happy to have the beavers there anyway, so he wasn't looking for trapping and killing. So they're gonna put in a water flow device. The company is Beaver Solutions out of Southampton. He was actually at the MACC conference, and I spoke to him. So he's going to put the device in. It's going to go through 2 of the 3 beaver dams. They're going to start install tomorrow, and I think this will be a really good example. DPW is interested in moving forward with this kind of device. The Board of Health is on board as well. So
Perfect.
I just need you to ratify, vote that you approve that I issued your emergency
All in
authorization.
favor?
Yep.
Raise that hand.
Oh, I didn't see Barnacle raise his hand.
He did.
30.
By the way, Beaver Solutions is the group that put in the one down by the campsite.
Oh, he did?
The ones that I was looking at to make sure that they were
Yep.
still functioning fine. 2, one on each side of the road.
They're still working perfectly, and Beaver Solutions is the ones who put those in.
Great,
Good.
great. And also, just so you know, he's only lowering the water level about a foot to get them in too, so he's very clear about that. I did ask for some follow-up on it, information, but
So where will the finished water level be? It'll be a foot lower? Is that what you're
that's
saying?
my understanding.
Okay.
Yep. We shall
Even
see,
at
though.
that, it will fill about the bottom 6 inches of the pipe that goes under the driveway,
Okay,
because the pipe ends up delivering the water directly into the Quinnebog.
okay.
Goes right along the side of Holland Road, dumps into the Quinnebog as you're coming out of town on the right-hand side.
We have a request for a certificate of compliance in front of us. I'm going to recommend that we don't issue it at this time, and the reason for that, and the property owner already knows, is that they haven't fully stabilized the site. He asked to put this forward, knowing that we might not issue it because it's a developer who's going to be selling the property. I said, I'll go out there and take a look at it. He's done his as-built to Board of Health. I haven't gotten a copy yet. He's probably just looking for a letter, which I said I could give him a letter saying that it appears that everything is per the permit, however, at this time we can't issue it because they haven't stabilized their site yet. That way the buyer can move forward with confidence buying the property, that there's no outstanding commission concerns besides the final
Did you look at
stabilization.
them?
I did, yep, I went out there, yep.
Did you look at both of them?
Which one?
One next door?
They didn't start building that one yet. They
Oh,
cleared
okay.
that one, so when they came in, gave them authorization, they put the fence up, they cleared both sides. They built one. The intent was to build one, and then after they build that one, have a good night,
Take
sell
care.
that one,
Okay,
they'll move forward with the other one. I think they're trying to sell the other lot right now with the
Oh, are
permit.
they? Yeah.
But what they would do is if they could take the silt fence down, just move it onto that property line. But I'm gonna recommend that we leave it up, wait till, fall and look at it again. I mean, they didn't put any loam down. They just seeded on top of a lot of sand, so I don't know, they might have to do some more work on that, but. So, I already warned them that I probably wouldn't have you guys sign it, so I can write a letter summarizing that for them.
Okay.
Okay.
All right?
Good, thank you.
We need to do our annual wetland fund appropriation for fiscal year 2020. This is where we use a portion of our wetland fund that we receive from our state fees to pay for the administrative assistant position. So this coming year, Barbara Berry calculated that for me. The amount that will need to be transferred from the wetland account is $6,000.
How much?
$6,000. As salaries go up, it changes a little bit, so.
Right.
Yep.
I make a motion, we approve of the transfer of the $6,000 from the wetland fund for the purposes of the assistant to the town agent, to the conservation
Oh,
agent.
I'll take it. I'm just kidding.
Agent. I need a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Okay, so I'll send this to Board of Selectmen for their approval.
And you
Hopefully,
did hear at town meeting that we do have a newly hired agent assistant coming in.
yep, and we do have an additional 75 hours for next year, which we're not paying out of the wetland fund. And that's not, I had asked for them to evaluate the position, to make it a full-time position, understanding that I'd probably get a few extra hours. So instead of maybe giving us like 5 hours a week, because it's 25 hours a week, they looked at, I had to provide them with an average amount of what our meeting hours were for the past like 3 fiscal years. And they figured out what our hours for our meetings were and gave us 75 hours. So that way I wouldn't lose that time in the office with the person. So, I'm hopeful that maybe next year we'll ask again and maybe we can get a few more extra hours to help with
Okay.
permits.
Yeah, it's like giving you 3 more weeks worth of work.
Oh. All right. St. Anne's Cemetery, 33 Arnold Road. Since our last meeting and site visit, I've been working with them to get the piles taken out. I gave him the information about our site visit, a mock-up area for him. I have instructed them to file a notice of intent. I've also instructed them to let me know before they go out there and remove the piles so I can, make sure they do it in an appropriate way. They told me today that all the piles are gone and the building's gone, so I went out there because I asked that they let me know before they do it. So I did go out there. And I don't know if I ended up saving the pictures or not.
Steven, you knew that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Come on.
So,
How many trees did they cut down?
so I was happy to see that they had straw wattle up in the back, although, I mean, it wasn't the best, but it was there. Everything's removed, and I'm thinking I went out this afternoon, so I think I have to open my email, because I email myself my pictures from my phone. Where's email? And I didn't save them yet. So, I mean, they removed it, seeded it. I mean, the seeds, you know, not evenly dispersed, but
Wow.
pile's gone.
Holy cow.
Pile's gone. Now, I was a little surprised. I didn't think it went that far back, but it probably did, you know? So at first I was like,
I think it did, because I walked back, I
yeah.
climbed over.
So they removed it. I can show you a closer up over here. There's not much of that pile left, which is great.
It does look like they left the vegetation.
Yep. I mean, he said he does have to like loam that and seed that. He did say that, like the over here. This, you can see there's seed, like look at, there's a ton of seed here and some seed here. So we'll have to continually kind of, he's like, it looks great. Go out there, look at it. I'm like, you didn't call me, but I'm almost not
Raising
surprised.
kids
Is that the
really
corner?
good preparation.
Yeah, so-
That's where the building was?
Yep, see the building was on pavement, which I did not realize. I didn't realize, right, and I didn't tell him to move the building right now either.
You know, I'm
So-
just reminiscent of when my kids
But-
were little. I just, you know.
But look at all the pavement. I didn't realize there was that much pavement there.
Yeah.
So they have, you know, a lot more pavement here, and then he kind of left this area. That's that other loam pile that was there.
Hey, Becky,
Holy
This is a new little, I don't think that loam pile was there, but maybe they brought that to spread. I will have to find out.
There was a pile that was like good
Yes.
stuff, and then there was the
Probably
bad
had spent
stuff.
stuff up and kept it. I would.
Yeah. What's this pile of lumber there? What's this?
This? I don't know. I don't know. I can
It was
ask
stacked
them.
up and the wind blew it down.
I don't know if that was, I don't know, if maybe that was in the building. I don't know what was in that building, so it could have been something from in there. I don't know.
Huh, okay.
But he's like, go look at it. It's awesome. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have,
Well, I'm impressed that they put the wattle
Me
in
too.
there.
I am
That's something.
so I will follow up with him, and are you gonna take this loam pile and spread it, or,
All right, what next?
Interesting, okay.
do you still want me to have them file the notice of intent as they were instructed to do?
Ah,
I don't
see.
think so, huh? You got?
Oh, so they're probably for these
That's what
cabinets.
the lumber's for.
I mean,
Well, we need a restoration plan. It can just be something sketched, right? I mean,
yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of went and I provided them on an aerial photo, like a delineated area, like if you wanted, you could apply to use this area.
yeah, I mean, we need to understand what their plan is for this, because when we go out next year, we're going to see new piles of dirt there, presumably. So, we need to understand.
Need that information.
Right.
Whether it's through an NOI or it's,
We can have them set up a designated, approved stockpile location. It's not going to be down here.
Yep.
I'd like to see all of this restored.
yep.
Even if it's just
gotta
spreading
be-
seed.
Yeah, it's got to be vegetated, just to, you know,
Yeah.
just to like a wetlands mix or something. Or
They've
whatever
already
it's gonna
got all
go
that
there.
beautiful topsoil.
Yeah.
Well,
Put a half-inch of that topsoil down and put some seed on
I
it.
was surprised that they seeded it because I thought they were gonna loam and seed it as we
Right.
Yeah.
suggested. But I mean, I do want to wait and see if this takes, and if it doesn't, we can say, you know, you should have loamed it and then seeded it. But I noticed
Yeah.
you seeded it.
Yeah, we should wait.
That's
Because they're doing their best faith effort. They just don't want to tell you about it.
Like most people.
Yeah, I just don't want to see this turned into, again, that this is the stockpile area.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the main
I think
thing.
I had made that map for him and said
Stay
this
on
is
the
where
board for
you
another 20 years.
this is where you could stockpile. Maybe once we get confirmation that they will fully restore this, this is where they will stockpile, then I send a letter that this is our understanding.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
A, B, and C areas. A is not used, B's for this, C's that.
Very good. Yep.
You
Wait,
know.
let's make
And then
it,
there's guidelines.
let's make it
for
crystal clear.
Yep.
Stabilizing the stockpiles.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
this is not stable.
Oh, and
Show them this picture and say, this is not stable.
yeah, just a real quick question. How long are these stockpiles going to be there? I mean, in 20 years, they could have the whole thing filled up again, 20.
That's right.
Well, they'll have to find another place to relocate at that
So
point.
this is a temporary, if it was a SWIP, they'd have 14 days, and then they would have to stabilize it, so that's a question for them. That should be in their plan. Right?
Should. I think we're gonna move on to the next one of that.
All right.
Mass DOT, anything,
With Cedar Lake, no, well, Bill, we moved the meeting, so I knew that he might not be able to make it. He will work to be at our next meeting. He is working with Peter Reed at BSC Group. I spoke to him today. I asked him to send me a summary just so I could, share that with you.
Yeah.
His computer's not working, so he couldn't put anything in writing for me.
Baloney.
Yeah, he sent me a text and just said that they're working on revising it. They're working on the swale into Cedar Lake right there. BSC Group thinks they need to do some additional survey work for that because they didn't go up further than that small area. But they're working on that, and I asked them about the other areas, and didn't say much about those areas. I said, well, the swale on the other side of the turnpike that's, paved and falling into the stream needs to get worked on too. So don't forget the other areas that we're interested in. It's my understanding they'll come in on the 18th to present something. So Cedar Lake Association, Raul said he'll come in. We do have a meeting.
If I could comment on
DOT.
all of those answers that you were given, not a single one of them is credible.
I know. We have the meeting with Mass DOT on the 28th. Was someone able to come to that meeting too, or?
yeah, I told you at that time I can't make it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 628,
Let me
Yeah.
confirm. It's either 626 or 628. 28th. It's a Friday at 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
Mass DOT in Worcester.
gonna be,
Yeah, I would have a tough time making that myself, too.
yeah.
I could probably make that.
yeah.
They would love to see you, I'm sure. Well, that wasn't your district, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They still love to see you, Steve. Don't let her,
Okay, what was the time on that? I'm sorry.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
So leave here a little after 10 probably.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Hamilton Rod and Gun.
Oh, he just sent me an email.
I got a citizen's complaint on Hamilton Rod and Gun with a picture of silting down by the road where the stream crosses the road.
I think I sent Becky, I went that one right after the rain and sent you some pictures. That was my homework assignment, and that's exactly what I saw. And I sent you some pictures.
I don't think you sent me any pictures.
Maybe I showed you the picture.
He alluded to some pictures.
I took some pictures and I called Becky and I said, this is not good. Okay.
They haven't moved forward with that spillway design because Burton Engineering does not have an engineer and it's not a priority project for them, so that's kind of on hold there. But I did ask him about their overall stabilization plan, which is not part of our permit that we issued, but part of their gravel operation. You're supposed to be doing phase stabilization on the parts that are complete. I don't think they've started in that restoration, so I did ask them about that, that they, obviously it's time of year to get that going.
I don't think the spillway design, I think this was coming from the parking lot and going down there.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I agree, but the spillway would kind of capture more.
The spillway it seems to be catching, well, I'm not sure what, where the water is coming from is they have stone and straw bales, and the water is going under that and then out onto the driveway,
Down the
across the
road.
driveway, down, and then there's that, like, intake.
Right.
Not an intake, it's,
Yeah.
there it goes into the stream.
my information came from a farmer conservation agent in Sturbridge.
Really?
Complaint said that we should get them to do something up further, it's too late by the time it gets down there.
Oh, yeah, that's what, I think we made that comment, that they should have a couple of rows of something to slow that down.
Well, they came in and said that they're gonna move their entrance, right, up the road.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
long-term plan.
Yeah.
That's
And
not
I-
the immediate plan.
No, but I think that will help. I mean, the whole thing needs to be stabilized, for one thing. If it was stable, we wouldn't be getting all that,
Yeah.
runoff. But I think eventually that whole area just uphill of where the spillway is needs to be vegetated. And
Right.
that'll take care
It's
of
like
it.
way too much exposed soil.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And it's been like that for 10
For a long
years.
time.
This is
Yeah.
sort of a shot, we can pass this down. So the water is coming under that stone. I should have backed up and taken a picture. I thought I did, but I don't see it. So that's right in front of that building, the front door of that building. And you can see
Oh, yeah,
how
it's
it goes under the stone,
Right.
under this, well, you know.
Underneath the bales.
Yeah.
And then you can see how it just goes all the way down and then into the
Nice picture.
corner.
It's the one he didn't send you.
Right, yeah, this is coming down the parking lot, hits the bales, trying to hold some back, and it's we're trying to direct it to that catch basin to go to the spillway.
Yeah, all it really does is like filter out some
of the
sediment,
sediment, yeah. I mean, I told him, if we could close that entrance, it would be nice. Hey, how are ya? Good. So, look see, this is the 2015 photo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a problem for,
Yeah, it's pretty bad when on the aerial photo, you can see the problem, right? Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
but I think they're just delaying. They need to get in here and start working.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, we're hectic, we're slammed, we're busy here, and
What's weird is it had worked for the first 4 or 5 months, and now all of a sudden it's not. So maybe it's a repair of some of the erosion controls that's needed.
pass that down, that's like the next, as it flows farther down, and
I
I
agree with that, David.
don't remember what that black stuff is.
all right, well, I will get on them to
Look like algae is
maintain those.
growing in there. It's-
How did you paint that in?
Pretty, huh?
God. Fucus.
Yeah. Now that would be a problem. All right.
A lot of guys salt their beer.
Next. Come on, Vic.
That's right.
Well, 173 Main Street, at our last meeting, we discussed sending a letter to DEP to request their assistance with the issues we're having with the drainage coming off that property with the Mass DOT and the gas station.
Yep.
I did send that letter to DEP on the
Good.
29th.
Yeah.
I issued a letter to them asking for assistance, reminding them that they approved this project. They issued a certificate of compliance. I also in that letter said that it does not appear that, in their stormwater management proposal, it does say that the swale coming out of the DOT pipe was supposed to be more like a infiltration trench, not just a channel directed out of there. To help infiltrate and remove TSS. It doesn't look like it's been designed to function that way.
And you told them we have significant issues down. So, yeah,
Yep,
good.
I attached my letter that I copied them on back in January. I also said that, we've worked with the property owner. We've asked Mass DOT to look into it. The property owner does not think it's their concern. We think that there's some question with the basin and how it was designed with the outfalls, et cetera, that need to be repaired. So I did ask for their assistance. I have not heard anything. I'm assuming they're just getting the letter or just got the letter.
29th, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I also sent another letter to property owner, just reminding him that he's supposed to be giving us, his inspection logs, et cetera, information that he's doing his operation and maintenance plan. I think the biggest concern was that we didn't know if that storm scepter had been cleaned, and that's the oil water separator.
Yep.
Because we did see that oil sheen on there.
Okay.
Because when Frank from Burton Engineering did go out there, remember he did check the catch basins and he didn't think there was enough sediment in them to be cleaned. He did make some recommendations to that extended dry basin to help it filter through that crushed stone again better. Because
Right.
right now it's just hitting that and toppling over, which might be increasing the flow, he was saying.
Yep.
So there are some things I think that he needs to do. I don't think, and I haven't heard from him, so I'm assuming maybe he's just getting our letter as well. But he does need to make sure those maintenance are done. And I did inform DEP that we've requested that as well.
So Becky, do you think that warrants a sock?
What's that?
Well, if there's not enough in it for it to be cleaned out at the present time, what if we had them put a sock in it? Then the only thing that would have to be changed out is the sock, and then you don't have to bring all the equipment in to do a clean out.
I think it just maybe another, I don't know how long, 6 months or a year is when he would recommend doing that. He just, I don't know when the last cleaning was done. Frank might have mentioned that. But I think he's just not at that point where he needs to go in and do that type of maintenance yet, is what he was saying. So
Okay.
you do the stock, it's just gonna probably fill up fast and he probably won't clean it out. But
Oh, so make the
So-
problem worse.
yeah. I mean, I think it's not, sediment isn't coming out. It's not full
Right,
at this time.
yeah.
But there's other maintenance that he needs to do.
I don't think sediment was the problem. Large
Right.
volumes of water to
Yep.
go from a 1 foot deep at most little stream to 4 feet deep.
Hobbsbrook Plaza, I
Yeah.
had a site visit on May 22nd, so the day after our
Last meeting?
meeting. Yeah, we went out there with Nelson, the building commissioner, met a representative of the property owner who came out from Arizona. He also had his landscape person out there because he's gonna maintain the silt fence for us. So we talked about that, what we're looking for that. We looked at the wall. He was having a couple contractors come later in the afternoon to look at that. They lined up to have their geotechnical engineer, because that's what the report he gave us from their engineer recommended. A geotechnical engineer looked at it back in 2016. So the geotechnical engineer was at the property yesterday. They're expecting to get their report back within a few days. Then they need to schedule boring testings, I think up on the top, to see what's going on behind the wall. There's gonna be some clearing on the top in order to do the testing. We talked about that a little bit. There's a couple pine trees up there that were planted and a lot of autumn olive that's grown in.
Yep.
I did reply to their email and ask them to talk to me before they start doing that, just so I can make sure that if we have to have anything, if they have to do a staging area for some, whatever. So, he did come in and we gave him copies of the original plans. They don't have any plans as they're new owners, not new owners, but newer owners of the property. We gave them plans that they can use. Yeah.
Didn't have any plans on the site?
Not those site plans, so I don't really know.
Just a point of clarification, did you say the geotechnical engineer had visited the site in 2016?
No, they had a regular engineer go out there, and the report that engineer gave them said they recommended a geotechnical engineer went out there.
Oh, so the damage was there in 2016?
Yeah, that's when
Okay.
it first came up.
Okay.
Damage might have been there longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when our Allen
Okay,
found
that's
it.
what I just wanted to
Okay.
understand. Yeah,
So we're moving forward.
okay.
I mean, there's nothing getting into the resource area. I mean, there has been some more shifting, the large boulders.
There's going to be a whole lot that gets into the resource area if that wall comes down.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, the whole,
Yeah.
Hey,
Marshall's will
Michael,
be
you
in
wanna
there.
go on site visit? Right.
So, I should
yeah.
hear something soon. I did ask them, have you fixed the silt fence? Because you didn't answer me on that question, so hopefully they're keeping up with that. But like I said, there's no issue there. So we're working on that.
Becky, before you go on to your next one, why don't you ask Richard if we can help him?
Dave Peterkin on the agenda for tonight?
Yeah, we passed it.
Oh, you already did that.
Okay, well, that's what I was here for, was Dave, thank you.
I'll do anything to get you back home.
Oh, no, you didn't, no need to come in for Dave. So we already issued our emergency authorization.
Okay.
Yeah, I gave that to Board of Health. Board of Health issued theirs. They gave all that to DPW. We gave them that on Tuesday, I believe.
Okay.
Tuesday.
You're gonna have,
Yes.
what's his name?
Yep.
The water flow, the
Beaver
stuff you have,
Solutions.
yes.
Yeah, Beaver
Yep,
Solutions?
yep, they contact, yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna have him do
Yeah,
it?
he's gonna
Okay,
start
good.
tomorrow supposedly around 10 o'clock, so if you're
Oh,
around.
excellent.
Why,
Yeah.
did you think you were doing it?
What, no.
He wants to see it.
I thought you wanted the practice.
I was gonna come here and support Dave in case he needed it, and
Yeah, because we know he needs support, but other than that,
All right,
no, we did pass it, Richard.
okay.
Yeah.
that's-
We're all
that's
set,
what I was
Richard.
planning. Very good,
Yeah.
okay.
next,
So if you wanna have him do, Heinz Farm, I wouldn't be upset.
Okay, no, I think that's probably a good idea.
hurt my
Me
feelings.
neither.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
see
you
ya.
very much.
thank you.
I had added the 3 Lad Road on here because I didn't know if I would get that restoration plan from them.
Uh-huh.
I reached out to them before we were gonna do our site visit. It's my understanding Calvin was gonna put together a plan. I haven't received anything, so.
Do the rest of the commissioners want to see this?
We probably should.
I think you should, and
the
that's,
reason we-
I thought the plan was to do it at the last site visit, but it
We
wasn't
didn't
on the
because
agenda,
She
so.
wasn't gonna be there or something like that.
Well, she hadn't
I
notified
hadn't heard
him.
from them.
Yeah.
So I can add this to our site visit schedule this coming Tuesday because we're gonna go to 2 Lad Road. I want to add
Yeah.
2 Lad Road there.
Yep.
So I will let them know that we're gonna stop by if they can be there. We'd like to get that restoration plan, but we haven't received it.
Oh, I'm
but-
sorry, I was confusing the two, yeah. So you were talking 3 Lad, I was actually thinking 2 Lad Road.
Oh, yeah, no,
So,
3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll add that. Hopefully they can be there. Maybe
Can
they'll
I
have
remind the board that at 3 Lad Road, we're not looking at the vegetation that exists at the present time. We're looking at the fact that it was punishment for having taken down 38 trees illegally.
39.
39, sorry, Stephen. Good correction.
Yeah.
I just want to make certain of that because this is not a situation where all we're trying to do is to get the autumn olive growing back in his yard.
Right.
No, I know, and I think they want to add. I don't think there was many trees on the original plan. They'd like to add more trees and reduce the herbaceous vegetation because there's a lot of herbaceous there, and I understand it's stuff that's growing in, but they want to add more trees to compensate for the trees taken out versus the herbaceous
They
stuff.
should,
So,
yep.
yeah. 2 Lad Road, I did receive a copy, just a letter format from a landscape company. This was the other violation that recently happened where they took out about, I don't know exactly, maybe
We think at least
20?
12. Oh,
maybe
20?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but around between that amount, I would say.
I didn't count the stumps when I was there, so.
I didn't count the stumps either.
Yeah.
So he's been working with us. He didn't realize it was violation. We asked for a restoration plan. He has a landscaper who submitted, it's Newfound Landscape Construction out of New Braintree. Justin Schur, not familiar, but they're proposing 12 red maples, 3 dogwoods on the east side of 2 Lad Road. What he just says, at the present time, there are
many
felled
dogwood?
maple trees
3.
and brush in the area of concern. This area will be cleaned up to create a native manageable area for forestry restoration and reclamation. The plantings of the maples and dogwoods will allow rooting to stabilize the soils and prevent erosion. Red maples are native to this location, and a grouping of them are plentiful to the east of the area in concern. My intentions are to restore what was removed as an added benefit. The proposed plantings will add habitat for wildlife and beauty to the landscape. The sloped area between the forest in concern and the driveway portion nearest the dwelling will be loamed and seeded to prevent soil erosion in areas lower in elevation. No invasives will be propagated. All the plantings proposed are native. All right, so I kind of immediately replied and just giving some of my initial comments, but I said I'd present it to you, and I also said I'd like to go do a site visit with you guys coming up. And I was gonna recommend that we do a site visit for this coming Tuesday.
Yep.
I said I just, want to look at the area that was removed and see if that would be sufficient. I said my initial thoughts would be that that may not be sufficient if there was about 20 trees taken out, and you
Right.
might want to look at maybe some shrubs, large shrubs in that area too. The loaming and seeding, obviously native seed mix, but we'd have to delineate kind of where that area is. I mean, I kind of said I can help or meet you guys out there too, and we can develop a more kind of specific area kind of plan.
Right.
I said the area for replanting will need to be delineated. This could be a sketch or shown an aerial photo. I sent him an aerial photo and just kind of outlined an area. I'm like, this is the area you probably kind of need to plant in, including where that large pine in the back was taken out. So I think we should go do a site visit and kind of go from there, but
You got to think about the site though, because there's already an awful lot of canopy. And you're talking about adding more canopy trees.
well, there's no canopy where they remove the canopy. So on that side, the wetland does need some shading. So
Yeah.
I do think the trees there are good. And then, I mean, I just wouldn't want them to loam and seed into the wetland because it's right at the toe of the slope there. So I also thought maybe wood chips could be a good
Yeah.
solution. So we don't have a concern of the washout or whatnot. So I kind of mentioned those things, and I thought next step we'll go do a site visit. But I'm glad they submitted something. He is, working to resolve
Going
this.
down toward the water, it might be more appropriate to put in some shrub work as opposed to putting in more trees, because isn't that where the tree growth is
It's
the most tight?
well, they cut some trees that were in the
It's,
wetland.
it's
They cut
now
trees all the way
open.
down?
It's clear cut.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, we'll go out there and take a look at it.
You need to look
Yeah,
at
I
it.
mean, that number of trees dispersed over that big location might be fine, but maybe some shrubs kind of in
Right.
there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it, did he cut them into wetland or?
Yes.
I think there's
Yeah.
a couple, yeah. There may be more, but I noticed a couple.
It depends on what you're considering as the.
Do you want to see a couple
The
photos?
resource
Did I
area.
show the photos last meeting, or you want to keep moving?
I'll take a look at them and go out there.
All right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did show the photos last meeting.
okay. Do you want to talk about asphalt millings, or you want to hold that discussion?
Let's hold off on
Okay.
that discussion.
Okay.
I don't know. I sent you guys a 100-page email.
Yeah, I started reading it.
And
I appreciate
I'm
that.
sorry to send it out, It's really mixed, but
Yeah, it is.
there's no question that loose is bad,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's not the same product in any way, shape, and form.
Right.
The dust is really bad, too. If we got a pile of them down behind the barn, that needs to be covered,
Mhm.
to protect.
Big pile.
And just as a point that, speaking of millings, that the place along the road to the recycle center, they put their exit pad made it out of millings, which is totally ridiculous. And we want to make sure that anytime we've got something like that, where where they're going to have having to put in, an exit pad,
Yeah.
we could actually there's a really nice picture in the guidelines for the SWIP that the EPA put together. It's a beautiful color picture. And we could maybe just attach that anytime anybody is going to have a landing zone or construction.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
Say, just have it attached automatically. You do a landing, an exit pad, it's got to look like this.
And no millings.
It specifically says the size of the stone that you have to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Something like 4- or something like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
every time I drive by there, I think, that's crazy. Does nothing.
Hey, I saved a turtle on my way to the recycle center.
One of the problems is
I saved
that
one there years ago too.
the
Yeah.
group that's responsible for dictating those pads for the beginnings of driveways and construction areas is most often not the Conservation Commission. And so consequently, you have to get that group, which is either planning or Department of Public Works,
Yeah.
to do that business. Because a lot of these projects have nothing to do with wetlands. They're on high ground, and they cause the problem. Eventually, we have to go to it because now it's running off their property and into a wetland that's across the street or something.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point.
All right, Beth, let's move along here.
All right,
Stephen's got things to do.
There's a couple other things. DPW director asked about Goodrich Road, a portion of Goodrich Road, which is the portion he wants, it's part of it's paved, part of they've already been filling in with millings in the past, I think. Wants to know if he can do a portion of that road. He's not looking at doing this is on Lead Mine Pond. He's not talking about doing the lower part, so I thought maybe if we had time, we could drive through that area. It's probably outside of 200 feet, but it's very steep.
Gonna be down into
Yeah, and it goes down in there, so I thought maybe if we had time, we could ride by there and take a look at the
Let's take a
state
look at
of
it,
the
because
road.
we're right, we have to decide what we're gonna,
You're
how
right,
we're gonna
and
represent
this is a paved road already, I know, we've been down it, so it's a paved, already existing paved road too. I don't know if you're just filling potholes or what, but we can take a look at it, I'll add it to our site visits.
Have you talked to him at all since he sent that letter?
Oh, yeah, no, he wants to do what we want him to do. I've gone out to Tantasco Shore with him, and we're gonna try to work with the neighbors over there. I've been working with some neighbors to look towards betterment for South Shore and Tantasco Shore, but him and I went back out there to look at it because they have the millings going down. You know, obviously water's still coming down. It's getting into that sandy kind of beach parking area in that right of way right there. And it's, you know, getting into the lake. So we'd like to try to put some type of drainage swale going down the side of the road right there. Riprap, which would go down to maybe like a concave slip pad to hopefully infiltrate and then direct the water into the grass area. But that's owned by the neighbors across the street. So one of the neighbors over there is helping us. I think they'll be very open to it, but we just need to make sure we're okay to do it because that's washing a lot of sediment in over there. But it's technically a violation. So, but he also said he'll sweep up the road and take off any loose stuff out of there.
Good.
Where he puts it, I don't know.
Problem with the millings is without a cap, you know.
Oh, I know, I agree.
You're plowing, you're doing
Yep.
everything, you know, it's
Right.
It's
And-
really not.
And I showed him on the edge of the roads where it's all crumbling already. I said,
Yeah.
you know, and if you had some way to put a berm on it and seal it in and, you know, pave over it or whatnot, then it could be fine. I've said that too, so.
Right.
But we told him to just leave it for now, so.
Yeah.
All right, Route 20 Quinnebog River drainage pipe. I went back out there the other day just to take a look because I haven't been out there in a while. It's definitely moving, but I think the tree's hung up, so it's not shifting any more than where it has. But I could definitely tell when I last went out there. The base has definitely moved out more, and you can see the pipe more, the perforated pipe and sediment that was probably in the catch basin that's come off the road down there.
Can you see the expansion of the alluvial fan out into the river? Where it's draining down into the river?
I did not notice that. Very vegetated down there.
There's a lot of sand spread out though.
Right.
Snakes and rats, you don't wanna go down
It's
there.
actually a plume, it's pretty.
Yeah.
The thing is, you need to go out there when it's raining.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's definitely moved. And at some point, the rest of that root base is going to go like this.
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole tree's going to go down the slope. So.
Yeah.
But you missed it, he threw one of his geological terms at you. Alluvial fan.
I know.
I was going to bring it
I
up.
didn't even know they were planting on it.
If DOT was here tonight, I was going to bring it up to them and say, hey, you know, we've been monitoring this a couple times. It does look like it's shifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll say the same
This other
thing.
one, oh, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I have you here. So.
All right.
I just want to say too, person came in for 11 Lad Road earlier. I think we just need to define where that edge of field is.
Yep.
Because I think it's very gray where it's early successional.
Yep.
And I don't know that that's sufficient enough to show that it was a commodity. I think there's some question with that, but I think that obviously just mowing that, as long as we can define where that area is.
That's why I asked about the 200-foot buffer zone. He lied to you, by the way, when he said that it would go all the way back to the middle of the field.
I don't think it goes that far.
Well, somewhere I have a 200-foot tape. We should just go out there and make some measurements.
Well, we
If
can
you
go out,
find
I'll
it.
go out there
We're
with
not-
him.
we're off the I don't
I know,
want to go back
sorry.
on a subject that we have.
But he did say he would
earlier in the
call
meeting.
me, and I will go out there and I'll kind of document
Yeah.
the area. I did go drive by there before, and there are some grasses and milkweeds in there. and
I
stuff
agree
like
that
but-
documenting it would be
Yep.
good.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
And by the way, I support the idea of your sending a follow-up note to tonight's meeting with him
Yep.
to make certain that it is understood that the board specifically continues to ask for
The RDA.
RDA.
Yeah.
And I sent him a
I
follow-up
agree.
email after my conversation
we saw
yesterday, and I'll send a letter.
And you might want to make mention that this is the second time you reminded him relative to an RDA.
Yep.
In writing,
Yep,
because ultimately it's going to come down to finding.
yep.
So when is he gonna mow that?
Well, the other thing is we have to put a restriction on it because
Tomorrow.
of ground nesting birds.
Like now, he's probably mowing it.
Yeah.
I think I heard
I'll
him
call
mow
him
it.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Anyway, we don't want too many restrictions,
Yeah.
but
All right, yeah, and we're getting off subject here,
Yeah.
but I will follow up tomorrow and ask him to meet me out there, and him and I can walk the edge and just be very clear, because he gave me that delineation. It didn't include anything close to the water. And it was
Right.
definitely, what he delineated is over 50 feet away from the water. So I want to be clear, that's why I said at the end, that this is what you're going by. So I'll walk it with him and
Yep.
we can, that'll be fun, but.
Yeah.
All right, Pine Lake. So Kim from Pine Lake came in yesterday. She asked to come in. She came with two gentlemen from LUT Design. They want to request that these persons become the independent environmental monitor for their site. Because Steve is also their engineer, they'd like to keep it separate. So it's a separate person doing the monitoring. And I said, okay, what is your experience doing this stuff? So they gave me their information, and I'm like, well, have you...
Where are they from?
Long Meadow. The couple of gentlemen started their own company. I think I made a couple copies so you can pass them down and look at them a little bit too. I could pull up their website as well, but here,
they're
I
gonna
can
be
pass
the-
the other copy down. So
They're-
one I think is a engineer. It looks like they do a lot of architect stuff. In their resumes, it does say they do construction conditioning, or I forget what term
This is
they
the part I
use.
wanna
But
see.
I asked them, I said, are you familiar with a SWIP? Have you done these type of inspections before? And they said yes.
And they're gonna be the official SWIP monitors.
Well, they will be our independent environmental monitor that we
Wentworth
asked for in our order of
RPI.
conditions.
Oh, they're.
That's
Yeah.
a good beginning.
Oh, they're gonna be ours.
Yes.
Ah.
I'm not sure, I asked them if they've done SWIPs before and stuff like that. I'm not sure if they're saying that they will also do the SWIP. I can clarify that. But, they said they've read our permit, they've been to the site, they understand, they've looked at the plans. They said they can come in front of the commission
How
if
does
we felt
building
it was
design got to do with,
needed. I think it's
This.
mostly a lot of building design, but it does say construction conditioning, I think, as,
Jesus Christ.
So who's paying for all of this?
not us, the property owner is. Steve Brissett was doing this.
And he wants to have lots to do it?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to get caught again.
Do we,
And I said
He
I
doesn't
would
like
need a
Steve.
weekly
Well-
report, what day are you gonna give it to me, things like that, so. I don't know, after they left, I emailed them and I said, I would like to run this by the board because of what's happened on this site.
I'm just curious about the second person. I didn't read all of it, and I haven't done any
Control.
research, obviously.
Yep.
But the second person has these great architectural civil engineering background, which has absolutely nothing to do with environmental sense whatsoever, despite the fact of having bachelor's degree from Wentworth.
the first person, I didn't even see the first person. I'm looking at,
Christopher,
Jonathan Selecki.
That's the second person.
yeah.
Where's the first person?
That's, just keep going with your Jonathan
Page before,
Selecki.
the page before.
Okay, sorry, I missed it.
Christopher Shea is the PE.
There's nothing. He's the first person in the
Yeah.
copy I've got.
He's the
He
principal.
has absolutely zero, it doesn't say that he's ever walked out and kicked a straw bale
No.
in his life, so I say no
Oh,
to
I'm
him.
sorry, you know what? You have one side copy over there?
Yes.
That's my fault.
So it's right.
Yeah, it's right there. He's got the.
I would
Christopher
not-
Shea is a PE, but again, I'm not sure that he has the appropriate experience either. Based on
Not
just
only
the-
that, we're a long ways in. We've got a lot of history going on with this
Yeah, this-
project.
Right.
And we want to make, we
Yeah.
want to be cautious, because if you send the wrong signal, you're saying that
There. Why don't, we
We
could do
want
this.
somebody that has
We could
the
do-
experience that I've had, where I spent 5 years kicking straw bales and erosion control stuff
Yeah.
for that construction company I worked for.
Yeah.
I mean, that's who I
these
look
guys are
for.
great CEs, but good gosh.
So I did go to the site today just to take a drive through too, because I just wanted to
How's it
be able
look?
to update you. Fine, they're working over at the front portion, doing all the stormwater by the buildings. They're not over on the lake area. They're up in the back doing,
Cutting trees.
probably putting pipes in. They're sifting gravel in that whole meadow area out of jurisdiction right there, and they're working
They're
in the
piling
back
picnic
area.
tables.
Just to jump back to this, how do we get these people and nobody else? Did we advertise that we wanted an erosion control
No,
monitor?
These are his representatives.
So
Oh, well,
we
that's-
had required in our permit to have we always have an erosion control monitor on a
Yeah.
project site, but we also asked for like an independent environmental monitor to kind of oversee more than just the erosion controls. What's happened this week, what's gonna happen next week, where's things kind of going, what are you working on, send me some photos. And we ask for that once a week now because of the issues that we've had there.
But they
so.
will have, but so there would be a separate person that's doing erosion control monitoring.
Well, I think they would do that here too, I think. I mean, we could say we don't want them to do the erosion control.
No, you're gonna say, like Dave said, we, have to walk
Do
carefully.
we say that they can, send us their first report and we'll take a look at it and
Yeah.
feel if we think it's sufficient, or you want me to meet them out
Yeah,
there?
I never
and-
did see the first person.
I'm just skeptical about the experience, or the lack thereof.
Well, that's why Becky says, let's see their first report. I don't see anything there. I mean, I hired people to do this, and that guy would not make the short list at
Right.
all.
Yeah, I just don't know why, maybe they said they have that experience, why they wouldn't have included that extra information for us with their regular resume.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You think they,
There are high school kids at Tantascwa that would have stronger resumes for doing those kinds of testing than you see on those two documents, which is kind of frightening.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
we
that-
could be clear too, we want the SWIP, we want the
That's-
erosion control stuff.
But that's
to
what
still
Steve
be-
is saying. That's part of the deal, and they don't know what a SWIP is.
Well, they said they do. I mean, but we could say, doesn't appear that you have that experience. We'd like to keep that with the person that's doing it. You can do the weekly reports on what the construction is, what's happening, what's happened, what's going to happen next week.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oversee.
I think you might mention that we're a bit disappointed in the relevant experience base.
Or
Based
just
on-
ask for it, and then be disappointed if they don't have anything. I just
Provide
say.
additional info.
We don't, yeah, could we see
On
where,
specific-
could we see in their resume, their experience in erosion control monitoring?
Are we required to hire these people? I mean,
No,
No.
we don't hire them.
they are. We require them to have them on site.
Okay,
right, but if they don't have the qualifications, then why would we even bother having them on
I think
site?
Steve's point is.
You're trying to pull the wool over our eyes.
I issue concern and tell them to send us a report.
Yep.
Take a look at the report.
Do you want me to ask them
must be
to
other people out there.
detail their experience a little bit more too, and then they can send us
So
send
how
us
did
the
these guys
report?
get to
Just
Well,
first base?
take a look at it, see
Who?
what's going on there.
They probably.
Okay.
see, that's the
They go
problem.
from
They
there.
can say
Yeah.
anything
Go
on
from
the
there.
report.
Yeah.
Aren't they just gonna make a copy of whatever the last report was and make some
Yeah, I
embellishments
mean,
to it? I mean, it's,
Either,
I don't know.
Either I would go with them and walk around and watch their inspection and be like ground truth, their ability to see things, or just simply say, I don't have a problem with saying, these guys look well-educated and blah, 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 blah. However, we don't see their experience in doing SWIP erosion control monitoring.
But I think you gotta do what you said. I think you gotta let them do one report and go through it.
Except,
You can't, if you can't stand back and without, and say their experience is inadequate.
no, I'm saying let's ask for what their experience is, because they can send us anything on a report.
right,
Yeah.
Steve says something really crucial here.
All right.
Unless we go out and walk the site with them and let them do the talking and see what it is that they observe, we have no idea whether they're gonna be an effective monitor. That's the problem. They need to be
Yeah.
an effective monitor. Just sending us reports, we're not gonna go out there and double check every report that they send, so we have no idea whether they're sending us.
But if you go out there with
Real
report, if you go out with report number one, that comparison between what they say on the site visit and what you have in writing will tell you whether they're gonna be an effective
We
monitor.
could do that. We could do that.
Yeah, we could do that.
Just going out there, and walking around with them isn't gonna do it.
Look, it is not our job to do that.
I know.
It costs us money to do that. We take Becky out of her normal position to do that.
I hear.
The man is supposed to hire competent people. Maybe what Steve is really asking is, where is the experience in filling out a SWIP? What have you done in the past relative to SWIP? Because I don't see it on their resume.
Why did they send that over to us? Why did they send us
Because they're
that?
replacing Steve.
Because they don't want Steve to do it anymore. Steve ratted him out in January.
But
You
why
know
did
he's
he
going to
send
get
it
him.
to us?
They
Just
brought
to
it-
add to the record
They-
that now these guys are gonna do the
Yeah,
SWIP?
right.
Or to request that they switch their independent environmental monitor to these persons.
Did they ask us to give our blessing to their people, or did they just say, hey, for the record, Steve's not gonna do these inspections anymore, these guys are gonna do it?
Well, I think it was more kind of asking, but
Because that's part of the SWIP. Name the monitor.
yeah.
All right. Gotta move off that one.
All right.
Not making any progress.
That was fun.
Well, what's the answer?
I think the answer is,
Without an answer, I don't think we should move on, Mr. Chairman.
I think we can move. Want to ask him for more information?
I would like to see the relevant experience.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, ask him for more relevant
Okay.
experience. Good, that's,
Have they
Because
actually filled out a SWIP?
agree.
in
We
the
need to
past?
trust the SWIP monitor.
Right.
We need to trust these reports, we need to trust those. Do we plan on ever going out from time to time and just sort of looking around and seeing things? If we're gonna do that, one or all of us or you,
Yeah.
we'll schedule it after the day after they do their thing if we want.
Okay.
Or go out with them.
And I'm gonna try to make more of an effort to get there once a week.
I mean, that's asking you a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot on your time.
We wanna trust the monitor, and we wanna
Right.
see that, and I guess
that's a problem with using people that we don't know well enough to trust them on.
I mean, if for a smaller project, if we had, an erosion control monitor, it would be whoever is doing the job.
Yeah.
But that's a smaller job. This is a bigger job.
Right.
So I think it's a little bit different, but I don't think we've been in this situation where we haven't really been
right, I mean, it's
aware of
all,
who that person is.
Okay, so you're gonna ask him for more information
Okay,
pertinent to what we,
okay. And if they were planning on doing a report
Yeah.
this week, can we proceed to let them do the report and we'll review that?
right.
Okay.
Right.
All right, 27 Lad Road. Moose Allen came in today. He's got some more photos. Says they're on the trails with ATVs now. This is a photo he has of them with tire tracks in the field. You can't really do anything about something.
Poor Becky got moosed again.
He just wants to keep giving us pictures. This is where they're having a battle over whose property it is. This is where they took the stone wall. This is right where the brook is going. That's the opposite side
yeah.
of them going up.
And what he's claiming is that that's in Sturbridge.
Oh, yeah, these guys,
That's the trail next to the brook.
yeah.
Well, and I know someone who participated in the, what was it? Whatever the most recent event was, the Spartan event.
Spartan
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he said there had numerous wetland crossings throughout the course.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I believe it.
Moose mentioned that about one. He
That was
said-
not anything that was ever permitted. It's,
Charlton.
yeah, it's in Charlton, and,
Yeah.
apparently they don't care, but I think the state needs to, the state was misled. They had an approved plan with the state, and I don't understand why the state is now saying, well, you can do whatever you want, when this whole thing went through, this whole process with the state, and they didn't complete the site according to what they submitted to the state. I don't understand. And the state comes back and tells me they don't have jurisdiction, but if they have wetland crossings that were never discussed at any of the meetings we had with the state, then I don't understand why the
When-
state won't get involved.
When I wrote my letter after
Certainly have
our
jurisdiction.
site visit, I did copy Charlton Concom on it, and the agent did call me and we talked about it. And he said that if we did do a site visit out there, he'd be happy to join us to look at it. This was before we had our meeting and he came in. But I think, you know, supposedly they're coming back to our next meeting. After our last meeting, I did email them just summarizing the meeting, and it's our expectation that they're gonna come back to this meeting with some type of surveyed plan to show where the line is. I think that we need to, you know, decide
Right.
if they don't come in with something at that meeting, you know, gonna go out there, we don't know the extent of.
He said he was gonna solve the problem of where the town line is.
Right.
And he's also claiming that our GPS measurements are off by 200 feet.
All right.
What about doing my little phone GPS? That sucker's pretty accurate. I
Anyway,
thought they were a lot closer than that now.
within plus or minus 3 feet,
Yeah,
on average.
yeah. Well, I think we should go out and GPS those spots, those key spots that we know about, and find out where the heck they
Yeah,
are.
and I think it needs to
If we
be,
find out that we're 25 feet in Charlton, or 30, is still in Sturbridge, we act accordingly.
you know,
Well, where we went, where the little bridge crossing was in the trail,
Yeah.
that's like over 400 feet from where the town line is, so it's pretty far.
400 feet from the town line, so
Oh,
that's in
yeah.
Charlton?
No, that's definitely in Sturbridge. They were saying it's off by like 200
Definitely in
feet. But where
Sturbridge,
we
and they
were, when I estimated it, measuring on the aerial photos, is about 400 feet.
And
So,
they put a wooden crossing over a creek.
have them come out with an official GPS unit. We'll figure out what the coordinates are of the town line and just have them show us the coordinates on, for those locations.
I think that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Or we have an independent
I don't want to talk
engineer
about
come
it
out.
unless we
but-
decide that we're gonna find out where we live. If we don't know whether we're in Sturbridge or not.
But if they're in Sturbridge, I think we need to take an enforcement action
Exactly.
on this, and immediately, because they've been dragging this out, so.
yeah. And I think, right, we involve Charlton Conservation as well. I know that DEP has a superseding on their property, but I think
Yeah.
there's Charlton stuff going on too. Because either wherever town they're in, it's an issue. But Dave has a special use permit application for Girl Scouts. Wasn't anticipated, so it's not on our agenda. This is the Girl Scout regional meeting at the lead mine property.
Correct.
Use is permitted. You sign that one.
It's the same Girl Scout group that has developed the ferry houses, and they recently put up a naturalized fence around the ferry house area so that people can really ID it.
Wow, nice.
And our intent is, and the Trails Committee agreed with us at their last meeting, although I neglected to bring it back up
This one
to our meeting.
We do at least September,
When
October
we
date.
revise the
Meeting
booklet
date
next
September,
year,
October maybe?
the Heinz Farm property will clearly indicate where the ferry
Yeah,
domicile is.
Ferry Village. Okay, we need, so what's the last schedule?
Our last scheduled meeting is in August, on the 20th, for our summer schedule. September, do we want to go back to 2 meetings? The first Tuesday is the day after Labor Day, so it would be September 3rd and September 17th for the first and third
When's Labor
Tuesdays.
Day?
September 2nd, it's the day before that.
So I don't think we should have it on the 3rd.
I don't either.
I don't either.
I think it should be the following week.
Yeah. so-
Well, we can't do the 10th because that's planning board. We'd have to stay with our third Tuesday.
Can we, just do the 17th?
Yeah,
Yeah.
September 17th.
Are
Okay.
you sure we can get away with just one meeting?
You're talking about in September?
Yeah.
Well, if we have to add an extra meeting, we can figure that out around then,
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to figure it out right now,
Okay.
don't you think?
Yeah, I'm sorry to backtrack to July, but when was our meeting in July?
July is July
haven't had it yet,
16th. So we have July 16th.
I'm sorry. Would you say that one more time?
July
7/16.
Okay, 16th.
And then we have, so one meeting in July, one meeting in August?
8/20,
Yep.
9/17, and then what do we agree on in 10?
The first and third Tuesday would be October 1st and October 15th.
Did you say 16th or 15th?
15th.
That's 14 days after the first.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Shocking, ain't it?
Yeah. Okay.
November?
Do you want to do November? The first would be the 5th, which is Election Day. Which, nothing. 5th and 19th?
Yep.
Because Thanksgiving is the following week, so that's good.
Good.
That works.
Do you want to do December as well, or no?
Sure.
Might as well.
Looks
All
like
right,
it's-
first and third Tuesday would be December 3rd
Well, 3.
and December 17th.
Good. Okay. That'll complete the year.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to what?
I'm not sure we're done yet.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
You delayed it on purpose. I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned. All right.
9:01. Look at that.
And you sent me an email, Becky, about
When they're gonna,